Okay, let's have people like ranting. We are late. Let's kick off the afternoon. Do you need to go to your PowerPoint still? Or do you want to swap?
I can do it later.
Alright, so welcome to the afternoon session. I make this very brief. Posted all the great bios on the school's webpage or program's webpage. We are about 10 minutes late. I want to make sure that we actually get enough time. Chad, as an example, has to leave early, so we got to get this in a crunch. You guys don't have to hide in the corner. You're the guest speakers and the VIPs.
I want to see the presentation.
All right. So I make this very, very informal because I asked them to tell a little bit about their own career development and career paths. I would like to introduce a dear friend and alumni from the program, Chad Maxey. Chad? Yeah. You read the bio. He's one of the first students I had coming to the program. First of the troublemakers I had. And troublemakers is actually an honor code. So all of that, a really great relationship built up. It is hard to get this guy scheduled. I think he bounced 4 or 5 times for this event. He was actually
He called me on Wednesday, so I mean.
But he also canceled the week before for in 2 weeks, and we had like 4 or 5 attempts to get him in. So I kind of gave him the kill script. That means, again, relationships. I'm really glad that you made it. He will tell you a little bit. One of the biggest and greatest excuses you can have for a guest speaker to cancel on you short term, 3 weeks notice, is I will not be able to make it because one of my dear friends from West Point is retiring and I need to be there. So that's one thing. And he will tell you all the other things. I would like to point out to the corner, in the far corner, Eric Swanson, Everson Young. He will give us some insights on office and on industrial and everything else he wants to put in the flavor. And I'm also delighted to actually welcome him for the very first time into my classroom, John Wittenberg. I keep writing you with OU, not with just with the U in the Berg. We met years ago while he was working for the Insight Group. Brought us as a program, maybe for collaboration, for knowledge transfer in the classroom. Then he changed a few jobs, and he is currently the VP for hotels for Colliers. So we heard a little bit about hotels earlier this morning. Now we can see his side of that product as well. So this is going to be a fun session. He double-checked the technology, so he's doing some interactive calculations with you guys. That's the reason why you got 2 emails about bring your financial calculators. Yeah? Again, the intent of this class is to be highly interactive, highly dynamic. We have enough time to go down that one rabbit hole and come out the other one, yeah? If it's wanted to explain things. We are exposing today topics you might not have had yet in the classroom setup, based on your readings and based on the where you're at in the program. Yeah? Hotel, how many times did we have hotel? Yeah? Real estate market analysis, that's about the exposure you had so far. Yeah? So if something in terminology is not known to you because you just started out 6 weeks ago, or you are really unknown to this topic, ask. This is a learning process. Asking is for free. In this classroom, it's value-adding processes. Okay? That all said, thank you for being here. Keep going with an amazing job. Tell us more about you.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to introduce myself again. It's Chad. Nobody really calls me Chadwick, but no, I want to introduce myself because I want to separate, first of all, myself a little bit from these 2 esteemed gentlemen that are sitting over here. They're giants in the industry. In fact, Eric was an executive at the company that we're going to talk about a little bit later, and so the reason I'm really here is because I was in your guys' seat, 5 years ago, and so it's really neat to be on this side now, seeing you guys, and then being able to talk to you guys about my personal experiences and what I think this incredible industry has to offer. And I was just talking to Eric, it really is a fun field. A lot of these speakers have come. I remember sitting on that side when Eric was, teaching us a class one time, and others that have come and taught classes. And it's really neat to now be working on this side and talking about different deals. In fact, you guys learned about the 2Js with Mr. Rotella. That was actually our company's project. So, it's like we've actually worked together now on the other side. So that's a really fun part about the MSRED program. The other thing is as happens all the time, you'll get to a point where you're like, I don't really know what to do here. So then you'll call and reach out to Dr. Forgey. We're looking at doing some student housing projects. We've never done student housing ever before. It's a very unique deal where we have aviation schools that want to put kids in there. So I was like, who knows anybody about student housing? And none of us, not my firm, nobody had any contact. So I called Dr. Forgey. He's like, I got a guy in Houston, and you'll have the same experiences with your classmates here, right? Because everybody's going to kind of go and do different things. So I'm going to show you my path of the things that I've done, but there's just so many different other types of things that you can go out and do. And so it's really exciting that you guys stay connected. You guys go to the networking events that we host, catch up with each other, because we're constantly changing jobs too. And so you never know when somebody's in something that could be helpful for you and your firm. So a little bit back around again about myself. I was in the Army for 10 years. I did no real estate in the Army. I was a normal Green Army man kind of thing. I did a couple tours overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so when I came into this program, I had no baseline of any real estate experience. And so I started the program 5 years ago, and by the time I graduated a little over a year later, I was able to go work for this company that was building the high-speed train project, and specifically work on the real estate side, in which we built 3 train stations along with several mixed-use projects at each of the locations. And so, I thought that was pretty intimidating when I showed up to work, but I was actually coming in at the same time with a couple of University of Miami MBA graduates. And my understanding of real estate, my understanding of what they teach in this program was actually far superior to their, they had business knowledge, but they didn't really have any real estate knowledge. And so I was able to actually pick up things much quicker and actually do a lot more work. And there wasn't a lot of time, so do a lot more work for the bosses. So the other thing is that I ended up starting out as a financial analyst. So there's a couple different paths that you can go. I know that Mr. Swanson has hired associate developers, and there's also the bank lending side. But the one thing I would say is that if you're going to do real estate development, and if you're really truly wanting to be on the development side, the baseline is always the numbers, right? No deal, no matter how good it sounds, no matter what tenant it is, works unless the numbers work. And you can assume, you can say, well, it's 2Js, it's Starbucks, it's whatever. But that doesn't mean it necessarily works. The deal works. And so, it's a little bit painful to be an analyst, to be 100% honest. It's 2 years of my life where I just literally, was crunching numbers on spreadsheets for, that. But now when I look back on that experience, I can quickly look at deals and say, okay, that's going to work, that's not going to work. I can quickly run some really quick feasibility things, and we can say, we don't need to waste any more time on this, we're going to just move forward. And that's very helpful for the firm right now. So after I finished 2 years as a financial analyst, I decided to go and work for a firm as a property manager. So numbers on a spreadsheet are just that, they're just numbers. And then you go work as a property manager and you realize, oh wow, these are actual numbers, and I got to somehow make these contracts fit under these budgets that you've created that and it just gets so hard. So it was kind of the more real side of things. You deal a lot with leases, a lot with tenants, and so it was a really good experience to understand the operations side, which is where we're all trying to get to, right? You build something, but at some point you got to just operate and maintain it. And so great experience for those that are interested in property management. There's always challenges and issues that happen every day, but it's a very relational. You're dealing with tenants, you're dealing with people all the time. You're going out, you're fixing problems. Really, is a lot of it. And then again, you just dive into those leases. I can read a lease now in ways that I could never read a lease as an analyst, right? And so, unlike the number side, this was more, you know, the leases and understanding that aspect, and then the tenants and the owners, of course. And then now I've transitioned just recently over to a development manager position in my firm, so I'm going to be back on the development side. We're looking at several different deals. We have a 20-acre site with Cadena that we're working on down in Cooper City. It'll be predominantly a retail play. As you guys heard, 2J's, we have a sale of a self-storage out in Naples. We also have another phase of airport hangars going into North Carolina Airport. So it's just a million different things. And one of the cool things is I brought to the company, I said, hey, you know, I've done a lot of government work previously. I'm interested in potentially there's a lot of these public-private partnerships, P3s. And so we've put together a team of, you know, architects and engineers and all that to bid on a P3 project with the city of Pompano. They're doing a mixed-use project downtown. So again, where did I learn that experience to do all that stuff? It all started here. This was the foundation, right? Obviously, I got a lot more background when I started working full-time, but, you know, I've just kind of picked up things along the way. And so, you know, you don't get tunneled into anything. You do what you want with your career. And so that's just been my path, you know, the analyst, property manager, now development manager, and so, and I hope to continue to go forward. So it's good to see some of you guys. I do know Aaron and a couple of you guys. So I do want to talk about the Brightline project in particular because this was a very unique thing here in South Florida, right? This was not, you know, something that you would just do, you know, normally. We do a lot of different types of projects, but this one, because of the transportation component and because of the mixed use and the land that was available, really it was a kind of a unique, you know, groundbreaking project at the time, and it still is. As you guys know, it's no longer Brightline, it's Virgin, sorry, so I don't have any of the updated graphics. It's a little hard to see, but, you know, we have trains. This is just the agenda talking about what's happening. So this is built on a gentleman named Henry Flagler. A lot of you guys might know. He actually built most of South Florida by bringing rail from all the way from Jacksonville all the way down to the Keys. So this is a historically descendant company of Henry Flagler's original company. So they had all of this right of way, all this rail, you know, that they had, and it was always freight rail. It's always freight train. Actually, it was passenger like way back in the 1800s when he built it. And really, we were trying to reimagine that, right? You know, he had always built these passenger trains for one reason. He had these resorts, right? So he had these big resorts in Key West. He needed people to come down here. So it was always a mechanism to bring someone to a destination. So, you know, our firm took a look at it and said, hey, we would like to do the same thing. We want to bring people to a destination, and that will be the driver. So, you know, usually you talk about traffic counts when you're in retail, and you're talking about trying to make sure that, you know, you have the market demand. Well, we were building the demand, right? We were building the train to bring people, and then we built the real estate, you know, to support that. So it's a very interesting concept, and ultimately they are going to connect Orlando to Miami. That's the ultimate goal, is to capture the visitors from Disney and Universal and all those folks and get them to the cruise line. Actually, Virgin, one of the reasons that they are very interested in this is they're opening a cruise line in Fort Lauderdale. So makes sense, you know, if you're going to get those folks. So a little bit just quickly on the trains. You know, they're planning on their Siemens. They were built out in California. Beautiful, brand new trains. They expect to get up to 32 cars per day. They're not quite there, but when they get to Orlando, that would be the full build. They go to 80 miles an hour between West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. Not because they can't go faster, because they can go up to 125 when they go to Orlando, but due to the density and some other reasons, they keep it to less than that. I'm sure you guys have seen on the news there were some very unfortunate incidents with the train. So next, a couple different. They have a first class, or they call it select class, and then a smart. So this was the project. So you had, and don't worry about the dates so much anymore, but you had downtown Miami, you had a Fort Lauderdale station, you had a West Palm station, and then it was going to connect into, they're already building that, that's at the airport, it's a new airport terminal. So the downtown Miami station was much larger. So the train station itself is over 500,000 square feet. That compared to the West Palm and Fort Lauderdale, which are only 50,000 square feet. So we were trying to build Grand Central Station in Miami, essentially. And just like Grand Central Station, it's designed to be a hub for all the transportation networks. So it's not just the Virgin Brightline traffic that they were plugging in. They've connected Tri-Rail, which should happen later this year. They're going to connect Tri-Rail, which goes out up and down parallel of 95. So it'll come in from the airport into the station. So now you can take, that side and it'll connect. They also connect the Metro Mover, which is, just downtown and Brickell areas. And then they also had the Metro Rail system, which goes all the way out down, along Highway 1 and then also north. So it was designed to connect multiple transit modal systems. And so we were able to, when we did the market analysis, as you guys do in the program, right, and you try to figure out, again, we were building the demand, but we were also tapping into things that were already existing and connecting them all together. So that's how we kind of created this demand for the thing. Those are a little bit dated, but when they looked at it, they said Miami's downtown population is going to be increasing 100,000 people, 41,000 new jobs. So what does that mean? That means we need to build more office, right? So we put 300,000 square feet of office in the downtown station. You also had multifamily, because you have all this population growth, so they built 800 units of apartments as well. And then, of course, they also built retail. So they expected, when this thing is fully up and operational, once connected to Orlando, the whole nine, they expect 12 million people to pass through Miami Central every year. So what was built, again, so this is the Miami project here. It's a mixed-use project, so it's a little hard to see because it's kind of lit up, but if you see there, it was all stacked on top of each other. So you had the first floor is the retail. Then you had some retail on the second floor with a train station lounge. And then the third floor was the actual train deck. Well, it actually goes more than that. So then that's the train deck. On top of the train deck, we have two apartment complexes. So this thing just stacks up on top of each other. So when you talk about mixed-use projects, there's mixed use and then there's like mixed use on the same building itself. And then across the street, which I don't have a pointer here, I don't think.
Yep,
okay, okay. So across the street here was another office building. So this office building was 200,000 square feet, and then another 90,000 square feet in this one. This was actually a first floor Publix, second, and a couple other retail outlets. The next, I think, 10 floors or 8 floors was parking, and then they put a office building on top of that. And that's actually where Brightline currently is headquartered, is at that office building. So again, very unique projects, and because of it's Miami and because they have the density, they allow that type of density, we're able to really build up. And one of the kind of really neat things that we did when we went to finance this is we said that there was value to the air above the ground. So Henry Flagler had always owned, that was where the old train station site was. So we already owned the land. But in order to get even more value with our lenders, we said, hey, we went to the city and said, hey, there's value to the air rights here, and they gave it to us. So we got a dollar amount value for the air rights, and we were able to combine that with our land value and put that in for all of our financing. So, and I think that's become somewhat popular down here in South Florida. So you're not just thinking about land value, also consider that there may be that if the area makes sense in that area. So I talked about what we kind of built there, just really large numbers of stuff. Next slide. So in Fort Lauderdale, it was predominantly just the station itself and the parking garage deck. There is a little bit of retail on that side, but it was just really these two projects. However, they own several acres, and they do have plans to develop that out into the future, and so that'll be the next phase. And then West Palm, they actually built this apartment unit, and the whole first floor is retail, and this connects this is a parking garage that connects to the train station. So what's interesting is we had to have two entrances, one for the residents and then one for people who were actually taking the train. But we were able to connect these two different uses together and create the mixed-use environment. And then,
So is there a sky bridge?
no, it's connected on the bottom. There's a the garage opens right into the train station.
Okay. What's the thing right across?
Which one? This one here?
Yeah, the one on the
This is a multi-family development. I forget who built that one. I think it was I forget, but it's another. It was actually a separate developer, but they used our market, right? They were like, hey, we're going to piggyback and jump on top of the fact that you guys are doing it. You know, so we built one. It was kind of a rush. Who could build the multi-family apartments first? So.
Do they acquire the land from you guys?
So no. So the train station. This was the land that they owned, but they did not own this piece. In fact, they ended up buying land down here to connect. This is Clematis Street, so it's very popular. Lots of restaurants and food and things like that. And then if you guys know the area, this is City Place right there. So it's kind of nestled in between. The government center is kind of up here. So it was a pretty good location, but there was nothing there until they built this train. So, but again,
Chad, just for everybody else's information as well, the only land that Flagler owned for true development was in Miami. Otherwise they just had the rail rights. So they ended up acquiring this site in West Palm and also the site in Fort Lauderdale. So there was, they spent a couple of years just figuring out where the station was going to go, and then they had to buy the site to put it there.
and again, it was always this idea that, hey, we're creating the market, so might as well take advantage of that and have our development to be taken advantage. So again, so this one had 785 parking spaces. It was 11 stories, so it's very, very tall. I've been there. It's a very tall building. 16 food kiosks, 17 vendor stalls, and 11 retail spaces. Again, so this will be and this is actually part of the airport. They're building this. There's going to be other things that plug into that terminal, but one of the things that they're plugging in, and they are, you know, there's some preliminary discussions, I guess, with Disney now, and trying to figure out a way to connect all of that. So these are the development pro formas, and if you get into the analyst side, you know, these are the things that you're building, and trust me, the spreadsheets are just crazy. Like you'll end up having like 50 tabs, and they all connect together. It's wild. But ultimately, you want to get to a summary page that you can present to Mr. Swanson to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. So, you know, again, you would program. You talked about the program, so you build this in here, and then you put a little timeline there. You talk about, okay, what's your financing restrictions or terms, and then, you know, you talk about what your leases are, and then this is probably one of the most important pieces here. You guys learn about sources and uses, right? So this is a big one, right? Because Mr. Swanson has enough experience that he doesn't need to, you know, dive into all the Excel numbers. He can quickly just look at, okay, does this make sense? Are we paying too much? Do we have enough financing? You know, what, and he's able to quickly look at that. So for this particular project, which was the office building on top of the train station and the office building that was across the street. So lenders typically they like to focus on their asset class, I guess. And so we got a different lender for the office building than we did for the retail, than we did for the apartments. So the apartments was, you'll see later, is an insurance group. The office buildings was Wells Fargo. And then we got the multifamily in West Palm was Bank of America. So, but for this particular deal, the project was $106 million for the two sides. And we were able to finance, I think it was 55% of it, but it's, yeah, 49% of it. So. And that's been pretty successful. They've leased that up almost pretty well. So. This is the actual parking garage. This is the office building that, like I said, was across the street.
That's the one with with the parking garage underneath it. And
Yes, yeah, so you can see the parking garage underneath it. This is the office building.
that's where they got the whole floor for MTV, or was it Eurovision?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's
Oh.
right, yeah. And then, like I said, this is where the headquarters of Brightline is. And then on the first floor here is where Publix is. And you can go visit all these sites. In fact, I remember we've done some tours in the past, and you guys can take the train. I mean, it really is a very unique and very interesting development. This is Central Fair. This is the retail component. So the other thing is that they built 130,000 square feet of retail, and so they're putting together a food hall and other retail tenants that they're putting here. This particular project, though, was unable to get financed. It's too much risk. So as you look at things in development, you got to figure out, okay, how are we going to do it? So how did we mitigate that? We went out and got what's called EB-5 money, which is when a person gets a green card in the United States, they can invest. Very, very attractive financing terms. Really better than banks. But there's a lot of strings attached. You got to create jobs, this and that. But there have been some very successful companies. So you guys have been to TAP 42? Yep. So TAP 42, they almost exclusively use EB-5 money for their financing and to do stuff. I'm shocked. I was like, how do you? It's almost like equity for them, essentially. But yeah, so we were unable to get that, but we were able to get the EB-5 money to help kind of offset the financing. But this was, an $88 million project that was almost all cash. Company was a $4 billion company at the time, so they are owned by a New York investment group called Fortress Investment Group, and so that's where some of these large dollars come from. So this is the 2 residential towers, again, 800 units total. That's a lot. The normal multifamily is in the 300 to 400 range, so this was a lot of stuff to put. They're almost done with this. It's already gone up. I don't know if they've started putting up the glazing glass up yet, but they're almost done. So this was an interesting project because, again, this is huge. It's a $363 million project for these 2 towers. And so we were trying to get financing, and we realized that ultimately the best source of financing for this one would be an insurance company. And so we worked out a deal with Pacific Life, but that meant we had to hold it because the insurance companies don't like sales. Banks, it's great. You come in, you build it, and then you can get yourself out and sell, and the bank is happy. Insurance companies, they just care about their premium, right? They're worried about that constant cash flow coming in at a constant rate. So I believe we had a provision in there that we couldn't sell the building for several years because they don't want to be paid back all at once. They want their premiums. So it just kind of gives you guys an understanding that there's multiple sources of financing out there. You have obviously institutions like insurance companies, but you got to understand that there's going to be a different take. So when you're doing the term sheet negotiations, things like that, they're going to want different things.
So then the insurance company, they gave you the loan prior to occupancy?
Yes. This is a development. This is a construction loan. So they gave it to us, but there's obviously hurdles you have to meet, and there's a lockout period, as I said. So they will not allow you to get out of it. You can, even if someone offered to buy that for a gazillion dollars, you could do it, but the insurance company is going to make it very difficult for you because they don't want you to sell that building. But yes, it was construction. Yep. And then and it's not, look, it sounds like crazy, but if you look at what's happening in the downtown Miami market, in the Brickell market, these numbers are what is happening down there. And so, and there's, again, that population increase that's coming into Miami, it's just exploding. It really is. So this is the West Palm Beach residents. So this is an $81 million loan. This is a loan that I closed personally, so $130 million project. This one, the loan was structured in 2 phases, and so it was $81 million total, but we actually had a situation, that's probably getting too much into the weeds, but we had a situation where the ownership of the actual land was the bondholders at the Fortress, the New York company. And what we ended up having was we had a ground lease as our company on top of that. And so they weren't willing to lend us quite as much. It was something like $70 million if you're just doing the ground lease. But once you collapse it, we'll give you the full 80 million. So, but what I learned from that is there's a lot of ground lease projects in Florida, right? Especially South Florida. And so now, on the project that I'm proposing for the city of Pompano Beach, they want to do a ground lease deal, and that makes sense. And so, understanding how to deal with ground leases, you know, and how it changes the valuations is important, especially if you're going to be in the South Florida market. So that's why I bring that up.
I'm sorry, can you embellish on that a little bit more about the ground leases regarding how the finance structure will be set up?
Yeah, so
if you have a ground lease, what happens?
So a few things. Ground leases are only good if they're very long term. And when I say very long term, typically more than 30, well, 100 years is essentially, it's considered fee at that point. If you get a 99-year ground lease, it's fee. Basically, it's a sale of land, essentially, at that point. But anything less than that, you start getting into issues with financing because the people don't want to be, you know, how do you sell a building if your ground lease is only 30 years and then it reverts control back to the ground owner, right? He now owns the building. So you know, you got to be able to figure out the financing in between that period. So typically 50 years is what I've been told is, you know, you definitely want to be at the 50-year range. There's also, you know, ground leases don't have as much appraisal value as you know, fee, because you're obviously on a ground lease. But again, the project that Mr. Rotella talked about, down the road we have another site, but almost all the land on A1A, or excuse me, US 1 Federal Highway, it's got a ground lease. It's owned by somebody else, and they're not real estate, or they're not into, they don't do commercial, you know, retail. They just own the land, and they just sit there and collect checks based on that. And they'll do, you know, I think that one we had a 50-year ground lease on that one. But again, so you're just going to have to deal with ground leases a lot when you're working in the South Florida market, because there are people that. I
want to just add to that. So the concept of a ground lease, you have to have comfort in the next sale. I mean, a lot of these developments, they're built around a 5-year hold, 5 to 10-year hold. So you have to have a good sense that the next buyer is going to want that ground lease. And a lot of buyers don't necessarily want a land lease on a commercial project, unless it's, you know, net lease property or something like that. So the person who holds that fee interest should be someone that you're pretty comfortable that they don't want to take over the property and, you know, take control. They're interested in that bondable kind of cash flow asset. So you see a lot of old money families that own these properties, and they'll usually negotiate an extension to the ground lease. But it just adds additional risk when you are selling it, that if there's not enough term left in that ground lease, you're not going to get the same value for your asset.
Do they call it a hangover period or something? Like you got to have that term piece, and I think it's called a hangover. You want to make sure there's enough time, especially, you know, again, if they're giving you a 20-year, you know, loan. Let's say you get a 20-year permanent loan on it. They're going to want at least 5, 10, 15 years over that, just in case. Last is the Fort Lauderdale garage. This was just specifically a garage project. Again, some very small retail on the first floor. I did this project as well, but again, much smaller, $20 million deal. What was neat was now one of the projects that I'm bidding on is another parking garage project. And so I learned a lot about parking garages through this project. So I'm trying to think if there's anything special on this now. Parking garage. That was our team. It was a lot of fun, and it's, you know, it's one of those companies where, you know, a lot was happening very quickly, and it still is. So now things have changed from the real estate side to the train side, right? So when I was there, it was just push, push, push. You got to get the train stations done. You got to get all this stuff financed. You got everything. And then now, the flip side, now the trains are up and running, and so the real estate side is kind of, hey, pause. Let's focus on trains, 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 and that's all development projects. So, and one of the things I would encourage you guys to do is when you're looking at jobs and opportunities, look at what's getting built, right? So there's a Tavistock project, you know, on 17th Street, and down in Fort Lauderdale. It's a pretty good chance that, hey, if you go and reach out and say, hey, I'm an MSRED student, they might have a job opening, for you coming in as a person there. Same thing with the Hard Rock. I remember they were hiring like crazy when they were building that massive guitar thing. So it's a way for you guys to look for a job that you want to be part of, is to find out what's being built, because they need people. And what happens is you'll swell, you'll staff, you'll do it, and then once you get to the point where you've built it, now it's like, okay, people need to move on to the next job. And so when I was there, I noticed that like as we started finishing all these projects, a lot of our people started going on to their next job and their next career, because there wasn't really a sustainable position for them. There was no future project for them to build at the company, and so they moved on. And that was one of the reasons that I ended up moving on, because it was time. We had finished the project, and that's just the nature of development. So if you're going to go into the development business, you may have to move project to project, and that's typical. I'm going to leave it open for questions now. If you guys have any questions on this, you guys have any questions on my current firm. My current firm, we're just a real small development shop, but we do a little bit of everything, and so it's kind of fun. We do wear a lot of different hats, and we're not just focused on retail or one specific asset class.
So out of curiosity, I noticed that there was a lot of apartment units. How many of those are affordable, if any?
No, and that was an interesting point. We actually did work with the CRA. We work with the CRA. I'm actually a big personal proponent of affordable housing. I think it will help solve some of our societal challenges if we start incorporating this. But South Florida is pretty resistant to any type of that stuff, and there's a lot of lobbyists out there that work. So there was a consideration, and the reality, and this is just my personal opinion, it was just much easier to write the CRA a big check. And so that's what they did. They wrote a very large check to the CRA. Part of it was on their land, so we ended up having to buy it. But we did make some concessions on, there had to be so many parking spaces reserved for them. There were some other things that I remember they had done with the CRA, but really, at the end of the day, I got the sense that and most private companies, I believe, feel the same way. We don't want somebody else messing with our project. We don't want somebody else telling us what to do. So we'll just pay you. And you take your money, you go build your affordable housing with the money we just paid you, right? So that's kind of what ended up happening with that.
So what is Brightline its own company? That's kind of the first question.
Yeah, so Brightline is its own company. It was a subsidiary of Florida East Coast Industries, which was the Henry Flagler company. So the way it was broken out was you had, and I'll just draw because it's probably easier. You had Fortress Investment Group, Fortress Investment in New York, right? These guys are a fund, private equity fund. So they're collecting money from and promising major returns. If you guys watch Billions, that kind of stuff, they end up and it's headed by a guy named Wes Edens, who actually owns the Milwaukee Bucks. So they purchased FECI, which was the Henry Flagler company that owned two things. It owned the rail, and it also had real estate. So that the freight train, real estate. So the real estate was broken up into multiple companies. So we had the...
This was my follow-up, by the way.
Yep. So Flagler Global Logistics, that was the subsidiary company that Mr. Swanson used to head up. And this was our logistics company that built industrial. Still going, still very profitable. They make billions of dollars because there's these large swaths of land that they still own, and they're able to just churn out Class A industrial products. Then we had a company called Parallel Infrastructure. Parallel was interesting because that's utilities. So utility rights of way. So you had these rights of way, long connected pieces of rail, right? So the utility companies needed to go underneath them to do that. Well, you got to pay somebody. right? You can't just go underneath somebody's property. So there's these massive amounts of leases, which will be interesting considering that 5G technology may make it so that you don't need those utility lines. You're always going to need some utility lines. I take that back. But so they had, I can't remember. It was something like, sir, if you, I don't know if you remember, like $30 million worth of annual.
It was fledgling when I was there. They created it because of the rail. They, you know, because they had that right of way, and that was the basis for creating that company.
Yep.
And it was very interesting. I have no idea what they're up to now.
It was interesting. And then the other thing that they did was they built a telecom company. So then they started building cell phone towers on the right of way. And they got up to, we built over 100 cell phone towers. And then I was actually responsible for the sale of that to a actual, another development company. It was out of Australia called Leases? Leases, yeah. So they were, but they were a tower development platform. So they were building about 100 of these towers. They were expected to build about 100 of these towers per year. A whole different category, but still real estate. All that stuff, because we would go out and round these little pieces, like 100 square foot boxes, and then build a tower on there. Then you had a Flagler, which no longer exists, but this was the old office. They owned a lot of office, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And then you had Brightline. So I'm gonna keep it very real here. This company was started as the train projects mixed use, and this company needed a lot of cash because again, you saw those these projects were enormously expensive, and while we did get some money from Fortress really made us move money internally within our own company. So what did we do? We sold an entire office portfolio. I should put an X, but we sold that completely portfolio, $1 billion, right? We sold this and that. We sold most of their projects, which were extremely profitable, and there's still considerations of selling that company as well, even though there's so much value still left. And it was all to feed the machine, right? And that's kind of what happened. And so at this point, now, FECI is still there, but it's kind of just a holding company for Brightline, right? Like Brightline is the company now. Like they're once this goes away, which probably is going to happen. Once this goes away, there won't be a structure. It'll just be Brightline, the company itself.
So now let's dig
And they also sold the freight railway too.
Yes. Oh, that's right. So yeah. So so FECI was split into two, and there was a freight company here that was called FECR, and this was owned by them, right? So they split us in two. We were actually sister companies. They had to do a bunch of work together all the time because there was bonds that were connected to both. But this was sold for $1 billion to Grupo Mexico. And that happened, again, all that money. Not all of it. Again, the money goes up to Fortress, and then we asked for the money. But the money was, we had just so much money that we needed. The project was $2.5 billion was spent. And when I remember us as analysts, we just joked one day and we just calculated how much were we spending per day, per minute. I mean, it's something like we were spending over $1 million a day, just burning through cash. And we got we got 50% financing. We had, what was it, $500 million in loans. But we had 50% that wasn't financed, or more than that, because the trains couldn't be financed at all. Well, we had bondholders on the trains, but you weren't going to get traditional financing for the trains.
I have two questions. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking that there was a recent IPO that was canceled because of all that.
Morgan Stanley?
Yeah, again, I left the company. I don't know what the process was. I know we had looked at previously the credit rating agencies while I was there, and we didn't get favorable credit rating, obviously, because we haven't built anything yet. And so then we built it, so that maybe then that was the idea, was to try to take it public after we built it. The challenge is that, the underwriters for that probably are a lot more strict than we are. So I don't know what happened with that, to be honest, with the IPO. but I just assume that, you know, it's going to be, it's just tough. It's very interesting to me, these companies that go public with just nothing but losses. Like, yeah, Uber and Lyft, right? And I was looking at it the other day, and just the losses are just staggering, right? And it's like, at some point, these have to make money, you know? And so I think, will Brightline be a public company someday? Maybe, potentially. But I think that, you know, it's got to prove that it's has a long-term plan to make money, and maybe it has to get closer to that before it actually goes public. She was next, yeah.
Okay, 2 questions. So Fortress Investment is the parent company. The parent company owns a subsidiary, FECI.
Mm-hmm.
And then FECI owns Brightline, so there's like 3 levels of installation there?
Yep.
Okay.
And actually, I'll even throw another one. This company got bought by SoftBank.
Oh, SoftBank, okay.
It's the Chinese,
Yeah.
or not Chinese, Japanese telecom conglomerate that just has unbelievable amounts of money.
Have you guys partnered for the apartment that you guys are building on top of the Brightline Center in Miami? You guys?
Yes, we did. That's a great point. So for all of our apartments, we partnered with Lincoln Property Group.
Okay.
So both in West Palm and in, and that's a very good point.
So are you guys gonna keep the portfolio apartment?
Yes. Again, we have to because of the insurance company for a little while at least. Again, I don't remember the terms of the loan. I think it was like 7 years. Like we had to hold it for 7 years, I believe,
Okay.
or something like that. But but yeah, we partnered with, and the structure of the JV was they came in at 5% equity. We did 95% of the money, but they did all the management and operations, and they would run everything. And so that's a very good point. I think, you know, I love working at my firm. We do like a lot of these little small deals. I'm researching student housing right now. There's all this crazy stuff. We have self-storage, but typically firms focus on asset classes. So these guys are industrial experts, right? They're awesome at industrial. We had a really, really good office. So we felt very confident that when we were building all this office, that we could take the team that was the office guys and bring them out. And they were very successful. They leased up, like I said, most of those buildings are leased. The retail, we didn't have any experience in. So we brought in a bunch of people that you know, were retail experts. We brought people in from Vegas and some other places. But I feel like that maybe the company maybe overstretched themselves and maybe should have partnered with a actual retail player like Simon Property or some major retailer, because 130,000 square feet of retail is massive. And because you got to think, I mean, retail tenants usually take typically what, 1,000 to 3,000 square feet at a time. And so you're talking a ton of leases, and that has been a struggle for the company. Is the retail side of it. So they're making it work, but would we may have been better off doing a joint venture? I don't know, you know, but you know, you're sharing money now at that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It feels like a lot for you guys to handle for Brightline company, the retail, the apartment, yeah.
Now, my personal opinion, they should have brought somebody.
Yeah, that's why I was
curious. Yeah, you were in the room. I don't know.
No, that was after me.
Okay, all right. It was a decision that, you know, that it's tough now because they haven't leased up as much on that side because they didn't have that.
So give us some ideas about your property management tenure, let's say, or period. Because what some of you guys might not know is the Terry Stotts School of Real Estate Development, we also run the property management minor here in the School of Business. And we are #2 after the entrepreneurship major. And so property management is a really big and booming sector. And we have alumni actually working in their own property management firms, like Jesus, some people might have heard of him. So give us a little bit of rundown how an RED master's with the Brightline experience in a backpack ends in property management. I know this is a special constellation, but tell us a little bit more about your experience, and then we might switch, because you said you were a little bit tight in time today, might switch to Eric or John.
So yeah, so kind of how I got into property management. There was, when I got hired by the company, there was just a need. They needed a property manager, and there was always a plan for me to go back onto the development side. So I was like, yeah, you know, I would like to learn. I think property management from an MSRED perspective, it makes you a much better property manager, quite frankly, because you understand why the numbers are the way they are, right? You understand, you know, what's feeding the decisions for property management. So one of the things that I did when I was a property manager was get ready for a shopping center for a sale. So they took a shopping center, and I had to take it through all the due diligence items. And all those things that I had done from a development pro forma and all those things that I do from this class, I was keeping those things in mind to think about, okay, what does the buyer want to see? So, you know, the most important thing, rent roll, we got to get that thing up. When I showed up, like we had delinquencies, I said, no, none of that. All that's got to go. We have to show that we're consistently producing cash, because for every dollar, right, that we get in income on your NOI, it's capped. So for every dollar, there's a multiple effect on the sale price, right? So you got to have that. That's got to be really good. So I think, you know, from that perspective, you can bring a different idea. Now that I'm on the development side again, it's even better, because there's an entire tab of my development pro formas that are associated with expenses, right? And for me, expenses are great. You know, you can call people, you can ask questions, and that's what I always used to do at Brightline. Is I would always have to call the property manager and say, hey, what is this? And they'll help out. But now I can just fill it out on my own. I mean, I know what the expenses are going to be for insurance. I know the expenses. And so it makes my pro forma that much more refined, because I know what these expenses are going to be, and I'm able to change them, and I don't have to rely on somebody's secondhand information, or maybe he's not paying attention, doesn't understand that the project's different, you know. So I think property management is the last thing I would say is that the development projects, these happen not very often, right? Right now things are going well, the market's really well, it's awesome. You know, financing is good, but if the market turns like it did in 2007, 2008, guess what? There's not going to be any development jobs out there. And property management has always been a great hedge for companies and for careers on risk of, hey, if there's no development, guess what Chad's going to do? You know, if we get into another market turn, I'm going to go back to property management, because property management will always be there. It'll always be there. It's consistent. It's, you know, every project has a manager, and you can get into different asset classes. So that'd be my pitch for property management. I think it's a lot of times people don't look at it from a perspective of an MSRED, and I think that's what makes you more valuable as a property manager. There's no doubt in my mind that I was able to add value to that sale based on the things that I was doing in property manager to get it ready, right? To get all the due diligence items where it needed to be.
So which part of property management were you in? Were you commercial or?
Yeah, commercial. So yeah, so we had shopping centers and hangars and a bunch of other stuff, self-storage stuff.
So what was the most useful skill set you got out of the program? What's been the most applicable for you?
I think the most valuable thing is your peers and your relationships with the speakers that come in, the relationships. I got hired out of the classroom by this man right here. So, you know, Mr. Swanson, you know, said, hey, you know, there's a development project, are you interested? I know the CEO over there, and literally that relationship, that connection. You know, my relationships with the other colleagues, Steve, I think, has come and talked, Andy and some of the other guys that I've done, those relationships are incredible, because I don't have to, you can't pay for enough consultants. Like, that stuff gets way too expensive. Every time you have a question about something, you're going to pay somebody, and if you don't know, you just don't know. You know, so I have a friend, Rob, I don't know if he's ever come back, but he does charter schools, right? He's an investment guy. So I call him and I, you know, ask him questions about what he's doing on the investment side, because I'm on the development side, and people ask me questions. I called Steve the other day because I was like, hey, I just need a real quick, you know, what'd you build dollar per square foot overall, you know, thing. Can you give it to me in 2 seconds, right? It was just quick. I picked up the phone, absolutely. You know, he gave me just a dollar amount. This is what we did, and that's extremely valuable. The foundation you guys will get in the class is incredible. It's 100% incredible. But you know, you're always going to feel like you don't understand enough in this program. I will admit that as you guys, because the way the program's set up, we don't have a start to finish, right? It's like people are coming in constantly throughout, so you're always feeling like I don't have enough. But it is a foundation, and like I said, I personally felt like I was more prepared than the MBA students from Miami for real estate, and for doing the projects that we were doing. So I think you guys will enjoy that aspect, but definitely build those relationships with your peers, because you guys will work together. And there's people I call all the time that help. So
full disclosure, this endorsement was not paid for.
All right, well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, my contact information I think was sent out, and I'm more than happy to answer questions or help.
You're getting your MBA right now too.
I am. So one of the things that I've identified as an opportunity for some veteran affairs projects. I'm a vet. And so I'm getting my MBA to hopefully learn how to do a business plan, all that stuff, and so because that's important when you're trying to raise capital. So.
You put together awesome business plans too, already. So.
Okay.
Chad is incredibly humble. I would venture to say that his 2 years at Flagler translates into about 14 dog years. And he probably got more experience and knows more about financing projects than probably anybody in the room, frankly. So he's done a great job. And
there were a lot of long nights. We were in that office till 10 p.m. It was crazy.
It worked you to the bone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was great. Well, my name is Eric Swanson, and let's see, what I thought I'd do, I have a quick presentation, which I thought what I would do is tell you who I'm working with right now, what we do, so you kind of see how that might apply and what you think about that. And then I know it's important to kind of understand how you get there, and my list is longer because I've got a lot more gray hair than Chad does, but so I threw a few slides in to show the different jobs that I had and kind of the impact that they had on me, including property management, by the way, which I think is a really, really good point. And then I've got some case studies to show you what we're working on right now, just to kind of show you a variety of different things that we're doing. So I work at Avison Young. Avison Young is an international professional real estate service firm. We do commercial work. It started in Canada about 35 years ago. And about seven and a half years ago, they decided that they built a new platform. They decided to come into the U.S. and they have been, since then, the fastest growing real estate services firm in the world. Now, that's great, but so what? I mean, so you're fast growing, who cares? I mean, and that's the real truth. I hate it when we pitch that, frankly. But what's unique about our company is that we are not a public company and we are owned by the employees. So as a principal, you own the company and you're vested in the outcome. So when you're talking about real estate services, which for the most part, the big one is brokerage, and then you have property management, and then what I'm doing is project management and development services. And we've branched out and we do a lot of different things in different parts of the world, including construction. We're a contractor in certain places. In all of those instances, we're motivated to help the next guy. And if any of you are brokers or know brokers or have been involved with brokers, you know that that's pretty unique because they have a tendency to be very siloed because it's all about commission. You eat what you kill, and if you don't kill enough, then you don't eat very much. And so it's a tough business. Because we are principal owned, it makes it, in our view, a better platform, a more cohesive, a more collaborative platform to work in. Oh, was I doing that? Sorry about that.
Can you go back to the first one really quick?
Yeah, maybe.
Left button is backwards.
It's okay.
Well, I gotta move something.
Did you break my clicker?
Probably. Here we go. So that's our vision, our mission statement. The mission statement is that we want to be the best in class. We're going to add value in anything we do. Our focus is if we're not adding value, we're going to stay away from the project. Nowhere in our mission or our vision do we talk about how we make money. Our view is if we do the right thing, if we are honest, if we are maintain our fiduciary relationships, we're going to make money somewhere, and that's our whole focus. There, did it again.
No, switch it off. No.
I hear you just point, I'll do it.
Okay.
Here you go.
Well, that's right. I'm going to skip through all this, but there's 4 slides. There's 4 things about what we do as project management. What we do is all the way from original concept in creating a project and providing value for an owner, in how to buy land or how to buy a building, what to do with that, all the way through the project management side, and then through the actual ownership side. So we'll take you through all steps, and then in the bottom, the advisory services which would include the financial component, the asset management, if you will.
So I think,
We have to go to
yeah,
the
those 3.
transitions or something.
Pictures are missing.
Where it says it can't be displayed.
The images ended up getting corrupted.
Let's just skip it, keep going down. Let's get out of there. Is that up there? Okay. I wanted to, oh, what happened to Chip? Looking guy, too. I wanted to show that we had a 5-person team that covers the state of Florida. We're headquartered here in Broward County. Actually, our office is in Boca Raton. And up until recently, I've had the privilege of hiring specifically 2 people out of this program. One with my tenure at Odebrecht and another in my tenure here with Davis & Young. So some of you may know Angelo Benessis. Angelo was with us for a little over a year and just recently got a job he couldn't turn down. It was all very amicable. He did the right thing, but he's now running a construction company here in town.
He's coming in 2 weeks.
Is he good? Yeah, Angelo's a good guy. So we were very privileged to have him for a little over a year. So we all do a little bit different things. Okay. Well, okay, the slides are blank. That doesn't really work very well. Well, anyway, so about 100 years ago, I went to school at the University of Illinois, economics and finance, and what that showed was there was a picture of a black and white old pre-computer. So that's because we only did black and white and we didn't really have computers. So that was a while ago. So then the next thing that I did after graduation was I went to work for a company called Montgomery Elevator Company, headquartered in Moline, Illinois. And then they moved me from Moline to Dallas and then back to Chicago. And was with Montgomery for about 5 years. And then took a job with U.S. Elevator Company, who moved me to Oklahoma. I managed the state of Oklahoma, and they're the ones that got me here to South Florida. What was great about the elevator company, and the story behind that, frankly, is that I had 2 choices when I graduated college. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to sell something. That was it. But I didn't know what it was going to be. And effectively had 2 choices. One to work for Procter & Gamble. The other was to work for Montgomery Elevator Company. Montgomery sold, they were a manufacturer of elevators, escalators in the construction industry. So kind of technical, boring stuff, P&G, great company, headquartered in Cincinnati, world-renowned, gigantic, everybody knew who they were. And when they make you a job offer, they gave you a business card and it said, Eric Swanson, Toilet Goods Division. And I said, I just went to school for 4 years, and I don't want to have toilet beds on my car. So I chose the construction industry and got into the elevator business. And it was very fortuitous. It was just kind of interesting on how you make some of these decisions. You think you're making them for the right reasons, but the reality is they may have been for the wrong reasons, but ultimately for the right reasons, because I got in the right industry. So I was in the construction business effectively. And then in South Florida, the elevator company closed down. They just said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. And so I was out of a job. And it was, once again, fortuitous, because I had decided that I wanted to get out. I wanted to do something else. And I had decided that I didn't know how to do it, but I wanted to be in the real estate industry. Those were the people that I was serving as a subcontractor. So Coger Properties specialized at the time in doing office buildings all over the southeast U.S. and they all looked like that. They were fairly ugly, inexpensive, 2-3-story office buildings, heavy landscaping. That's all they were. I mean, they spent an extra $1 a foot in landscaping to cover up their buildings. But they had a tremendous business model. Their business model was, we're going to lease space, this inexpensive, cheap space, good space, but cheap, to insurance companies and the government. And lo and behold, about 80% of their clients, of their square footage leased, were to the insurance companies, same ones all over the U.S. And the U.S. and state and county governments. And it made sense, and everybody loved it. So they moved me from South Florida, and I worked here, and that's where I actually got into the property management business. So I started there to lease space, and to get ahead, you didn't get promoted because of your qualifications there. Actually, you got promoted primarily because of your tenure. You know, if you're in line. So I was behind 4 other guys, and I had to figure out a way to get around those guys a little bit if I could. And so I did, and I started we did not have a formal property management organization at that time down here in South Florida. And so we created that, and I became the property manager. I learned everything there was to know about it, and didn't like it very much, but it was great because it did get me to move around those people. And I will tell you that, to follow up on the comments made earlier, understanding property management will make you better at anything else you do in real estate, anything, particularly development. Because if you know how a building functions, that's how you'll know how to build it, and how to lease it, and how to sell it. And so I think it's a critical part of the business. From there, and so then I'm in Greensboro. Unfortunately, Coger went through Chapter 11 at the time. That was the first recession I went through. That was a miserable experience. But I needed to leave, and my friends in South Florida were starting this business with a Cadena group, and so they hired me to come down and do medical office development. And I remember the interview with Armando at the time, and they were offering me the job, and I said, look, I mean, I love you guys, I love South Florida, I want to be here, I love this job, I want to do this. But you realize I've been in a medical office building. I've never built one. I don't know anything about it. I've been in a doctor's office as is. Yeah, I know. But the truth is, we think you're pretty smart. We think you'll figure it out. You'll grow. And also our first choice is in California, and they're not moving to Miami. So it's okay. I can live with that. That's all right. I don't mind being second choice. Cadena Group was a great ride. I learned a tremendous amount in that period. That was where I started to get into the industrial. I left Cadena on good terms for a few reasons, mostly family reasons, and moved to Denver, Colorado for a group called the Land Bank Group, which specialized in environmental properties, brownfield stuff. That was kind of a passion of mine, to try to turn really bad crap stuff into good stuff. So I did that, and that was really fascinating, interesting. And then Bro Group was another fascinating group. This is a guy, very entrepreneurial guy, ran his land division, worked for Pat for 3 years. Pat bought, it was 300,000 acres in New Mexico. Yeah, so I'm sitting in Denver, and he buys he's under contract for 300,000 square feet. I'm sorry, 300,000 acres in New Mexico, and which, if you don't kind of get that, that's like really, really big. It's much bigger than Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach all put together. It's way, way big. And so we ran cattle operation, a horse operation, an oil and gas operation all on this property for him. So he was just an incredible entrepreneur and a lot of fun to work for. Not a pleasant guy, but he was very, very smart. And then at the tail end of that, that's when I had the privilege and opportunity to come back to work at Codina, because Codina, what was here was Codina sold his company to FECI. That was right here. And so then FECI sold their public company to Fortress Investment Group. And after Armando sold the company to Fortress, then I got the call to, would you come down and help us run our development operations? And so I did that, and loved every minute of it. And then the next one, so I did that and had a lot of fun there, but like Chad was saying, you kind of work yourself out of a position there. It's a wonderful place to work, but it's also a tough place to work. I mean, you're working a lot, and I wanted to do something else, and so I wanted to learn about infrastructure and P3. So I felt like that was a direction, still believe that that's a direction that our industry is going, and I wanted to learn more about that. So I took a job with Odebrecht, big Brazilian firm. Left when they got into all sorts of trouble in Brazil, and started my own business with a couple of friends called Trucker Franklin. We were going to do P3s on a smaller scale, and then in what I did there is I then moved that platform over to Avis & Young. So effectively, I'm running my own business under this umbrella of Avis & Young. And the point of the picture is to show you that all of those different things, and they were a little disparate and they were a little bit different, but those were all tools that helped me move on and survive in the industry, in the industry that I really, really love. So if you don't mind, thank you for doing this. So I just threw a couple of case studies in there. What we do, this is a tenant improvement. So we have a lot of office brokers around the state of Florida, and a lot of offices that we manage around the state of Florida. So we step in and we'll build out tenant improvements for landlords and also for customers. This one was done in Tampa. I'll spare you all the details. This one without a picture now, but Palm River Center is a 20-acre piece of land up in the middle of the East Tampa industrial market. We're working with the current landowner there who is trying to put that project, his 20 acres, into a joint venture. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to ultimately do the joint venture with him and then build industrial product on that site in the 20 acres. It's really a very unique piece of property. This is one we've done more recently. If you're familiar with Miami-Dade, this is out in West Dade, the Tamiami Airport, now called the Miami Executive Airport. It's to the south of that. It's way out, right about here is where the Everglades are. But this 50-acre site has 5 existing buildings on it, all 100,000 square feet each, of 2 stories tall. 500,000 square foot single tenant called Beckman Coulter. Beckman Coulter
makes the machinery that, in the long run, tests blood. But they make the equipment and the processes to test it. And so the owner said, look, I've got this old property, it's fine, it's great, I've got this great tenant who likes it here, wants to stay here, but there's not much around it, and I want to try to build value for them because I want them to keep renewing year over year over year. And in addition, I'd like to see if I can add value to my real estate. So we looked at it, we determined that he had 29 extra acres around, and we felt like he could do some multifamily over on this side of the property, a parking garage here to displace some of the parking that we're having to displace here. We located a hotel on this corner, 2 retail facilities with storage above that, and then a warehouse up here in the upper right-hand corner, all of which are displacing parking, which is going into the parking garage. So we did that analysis for that owner, and we're in the process of figuring out what his next steps are going to be, how much of this he's going to want to do. So that's been a great project. This was another thing that we're doing. Regions Bank in Coral Gables was out for sale. So one of our big clients, TA Realty, who we do some management for, called us and said, look, man, we're in the hunt for this thing, but can you give us an edge? Can you figure out a way where we might be able to add value to our proposal so that we can buy this building? And what we did is we came up with this concept of the idea book. So we went through and we identified several capital improvements that could be made to the property that would, that we think tenants will ultimately pay for, thereby increasing his rent, thereby increasing his value of the building, thereby hopefully increasing his offer so that he can get in a position to come in first place on the acquisition. These were pictures we did. This is what the building looks like right now. It's a great building, but it's nondescript. It's a bank building, and the bank built it so that nobody else would go there. They didn't want other tenants. So there's a nondescript entrance. So one of the things we feel like we really needed to do is to create an entrance, something facing the street that will work. We think that will add value to his other tenants that they now have to attract. So we gave some ideas and some pricing around that, and I think gave him some good ideas. This is again where property management came in. Part of our proposal to him, or our report to him, was we looked at all of your property management, all your operating expenses, and we think you can reduce your cost by about $1.35. So $1.35 on it was about $11.85 is what they were paying. So when you can do that and get your operating expenses down to $10.50, you're probably looking at a $5 million swing in value, just based upon the cap rates that are being paid right now. So that, just by itself, we're saving this guy $5-6 million. This one is the one that's happening right now, and this is the P3 that I'm currently working on. If you're familiar with Port Everglades, that's port all the way to the right, it's the airport here to the left. This is US 1 coming in here, 595 going and dying right into the port. They have a need, and then they need to, they're digging out this turning notch. So they're creating more space for cargo facilities. By making that more space, they're moving off some of the terminal operators that are there, so that all has to change. So terminal operators are planning then to go to up here, what's in currently the foreign trade zone, which consists of about 50-year-old buildings that are really pretty crappy buildings. And so those are going to be bulldozed, and then the terminal operators, a terminal operator will move up there. So the foreign trade zone adds a great deal of value to the port, moves their cargo through the port faster, at greater value, and they wanted to continue with that use. So they said, we want to recreate the foreign trade zone there. So that property there in the red was where they had that done. They went out to bid with an RFP. A couple of people bid on it. They picked one, they negotiated with the one, and the negotiations failed. So they were back out to the market. Yeah.
Was Port Consolidated part of that? Like demolishing or repositioning the business in that area?
Were they, what do you mean consolidated?
Port Consolidated is a business, the old distribution business. Are they being moved? I know the owner of the company is Kevin Fred.
Don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not moving them.
I got it.
Yeah, so somebody might be.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, anybody that's in there is going to ultimately be leaving. And so the RP failed. They did negotiate. They were going to go back out, and then we came in. We assembled a team. I happen to know the biggest tenant in there is a guy that runs a company called IWS. And IWS, his name's Fred. Fred came to me and said, "Man, what do I do? Because my business is very dependent upon the port, and someday I'm going to get this notice in the mail that's going to say, okay, you got 60 days, you got to move. So how do I control my own outcome?" And so we created a unsolicited offer. Said, let's build it yourself. And so we assembled a team and we put in an offer to develop the new foreign trade zone for the port. So we submitted the offer. This was a series of events. 3.5 short years later, we did the offer. It was approved to negotiate. We negotiated successfully. We got the ground lease. Ground lease was then approved. Then we took it out to get financed, and the financing failed. Why did it fail? Because of the ground lease. The ground lease they were offering was a 30-year ground lease with an option to extend for 20 years. But the option was at the port's decision, entirely their decision. However, if they chose not to extend, then they were going to pay us fair market value for the building. I honestly felt like that was going to be enough to get it financed. And it probably would be, but it was the volume of people that would provide debt for that project went from here down to here. And so we ultimately went back and said, okay, this isn't going to work. We're not going to be successful with this. So we need to renegotiate this. They agreed to do that. So we renegotiated, successfully approved by the county, and then while we did that, we found a new equity resource. The new equity then is going to come in. They are now approved to receive our assignment. Once we have that done, we got that done, now we're ticking and tying, and we're going to hopefully close in 2 weeks with them. And then we can start building. We've been working on site work for about the last 3 months, and we're hopeful to get a permit in May. If we get that, then we'll get started in construction. And when we do that, we'll build this facility, and maybe the next one comes out.
Beautiful.
No, it doesn't. Well, it's a gorgeous two-industrial building there, honestly. I apologize. I don't know why that wasn't working, but there'll be 2 industrial buildings that we'll be managing and constructing. So that's my pitch. Thank you very much for doing that. So I would open it up to any questions that you might have. Yes, sir.
As someone who's hired employees, what are the things that you see that's consistent of the MSRED students that helps them be valuable in the real estate industry?
Well, it's interesting. I'm looking for somebody right now in a project management role. And so I thought a lot about, well, what is that person? What is that person? What makes them up? The first thing I look for, and this is the thing that I saw in Chad. Is Chad still here?
No,
Okay.
he had like 3 events this afternoon, and I got to squeeze him out for 90 minutes. So I'm like delighted that he was here.
Look, I don't want to tell you that Chad is not brilliant, because he probably is, but he didn't get the highest marks in the class. and I think he was pretty smart. But what I liked about him and recommended him to my boss is, number one, he was disciplined. He showed up at every event that I ever attended. He made a point of coming up and shaking my hand. And he was present in class, which I double checked. He showed up there, and he could talk to people. He could look people in the eye and have a conversation. So I figured that if he was somewhat smart and could have a conversation, he's got a little bit of people skills, and was disciplined, then that's a good employee. That's somebody that'll work hard. And so that's, honestly, that's what I look for. In a project management role, what we do, as you can tell, I try to show you a variety of stuff. We're working with owners, we're working for managers, we're working for dirt people, people that own and operate dirt. We're working for brokers. We're working for everybody. So if you're working for everybody, you got to be able to talk to everybody. You got to be able to get down in the weeds when you need to, and you need to know when to say, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. Let me find somebody that does. In our case, you need to know a little bit something about construction, but you don't need to be a contractor. Chip, whose face you didn't see there, is a contractor, so he's forgotten more about construction than I'll ever know. And that's my safety net for the construction side of it. So discipline, people skills, and being a little aggressive. Actually, if any of you know Angelo, I know Thomas does, Angelo was aggressive, right? I mean, he may have been a little too far on that side, but not really. He's just aggressive, and that was good. That was one of the things we needed. I needed self-starters. So, yes, sir.
So you mentioned that you had already built your practice and then you brought it into Avis & Young.
Yes.
What was it, the capital market resources inside of the company that really brought you in, or what was the value prop for you?
The value prop for me was I was effectively a one-man band. And when you're a one-man band, you're usually in either business development mode or you're in execution mode. And when you're in execution mode, like right now, we're getting ready to close this property report everybody's. I struggle to find any 15 minutes of my day to do anything other than get copies of all the invoices that they need, preparing all the exhibits they need, getting the leases done that they need to get done, doing all of the nickel and dime things that I have to get done. So while I'm doing that, I don't have any time to go out and develop business. With Avis & Young, I have a built-in 70-person brokerage team in the state of Florida. And so I've got built-in 70 clients. So I don't have to go to the whole state. I just need to go to those 70. And frankly, I don't need to go to all 70. I need to get to probably a dozen of them who are good at getting other business. And if I can convince them that I can make their sales proposition more valuable and I can make them more money, then they're going to be excited about bringing me in on the deal. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're, so I'm trading, doing like one-off deals to doing a wider variety and doing more. So I get a little more quantity.
So are you in an entrepreneurial role, or? Okay, so.
Yeah, so I mean, I eat what I kill. So if I make a small salary so that I can have access to the benefits, that's about the only thing. I get a business card. Other than that, I'm pretty much paying for everything else.
You pay for your own office space, your own overhead, and
yeah, we have an office, yeah. So yeah. That's not fair, right? I get office too.
But Avis & Young pays for the office?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I get a salary, and then it's not a split on a deal by deal basis like if you're going to do brokerage with us, if you brought in if you brought in $250,000 in fees a year as a broker, you're gonna pretty much split that 50-50. So you'll walk home with 125 of that. Then as you get more, you know, then you get another break point, then you get to take in a little bit more. You get a little more of the next 100 grand, you get a little more of the next 100 grand. By the time you're into the million, then you're taking home a large part of that. My deal is similar, but it's not on a deal by deal, it's a revenue sharing concept. So I got a salary, I've got expenses to watch. Out of that comes my office and the things we do, and then I share the revenue.
And then you went across like older product lines. And
Yes.
That's why you targeted revenue.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're doing, the development you see, or didn't see, was industrial. That's because that's a hot asset class today. You know, that's trading, you know, that stuff that Chad showed you, Flagler, I mean, 4 caps. I mean, I never thought I'd see 4 caps. I mean, that's, you can sneeze and lose money on a 4 cap. I mean, it's just, that's what happens. And so it's just an incredible thing as a seller. And that's why they're selling it. I mean, there's no better time. The guy that Chad used to work for, a guy named Vincent Signorello is a tremendously bright, probably borderline genius guy, cussed like a Marine captain or Army captain that he was. But he used to say that if the capital markets rein in money, bring a big bucket. And so his whole concept was, let's build as much of this industrial shit as we can because we're going to sell it all. And that's what they're doing. They're not even leasing it. They're selling it without even leasing it, selling before they're even done.
So being right by the board, is just personal curiosity. Have you seen anything multi-story for industrial?
Yeah. Yes. We toyed with it on this site, and it'll happen. I mean, there's a couple of projects in design right now. I've had 2 of them. We had the Flagler site next to the airport was going to be multi-story, frankly. But the problem with multi-story in the U.S. is very prevalent in Asia, Japan. I went to see them in Asia. Is the trucks in Japan, particularly in the Singapore, are small because they're servicing an island. So you've got panel trucks, you know, maybe 35 to 50 feet tops. So you can kind of wind those trucks up 3, 4, 5 levels, and your ramp is not that big. In the U.S., you're pulling 55-foot trailers, 53-foot, and then you add another 17 feet of tractor. I mean, that's not the little spiral, that's, you know, one of these things. And that's a lot of money and a lot of horsepower. And the big trucks, freight companies are not excited about it yet because they're fine. But it's a challenge to convince them. As we had a couple of designs, we went to them and they said, no, our truck drivers said, one guy said, no, I'll be playing bumper pool on the bottom level and hitting all the columns and knocking everybody, the deck from the top down, and we're visualizing driving off the edge of the upper deck and the truck hanging off the other thing. So it's a tough sell in the U.S., but it will happen. It'll happen by one of the REITs, like Prolot's doing in Seattle. Yeah. A couple of people do it in New York. Mm-hmm. It'll happen more for the smaller stuff in the urban environment is where it'll really happen.
So the interesting observation is, when we talk about multi-floor for industrial, you think a second floor for warehousing.
I actually have a picture.
But why not actually say, let's put a layer or 2 layers of office on top of those?
You can't, except most of the industrial guys don't like office.
And then you look here.
Your office is sitting over here and your cargo is way down here. And these buildings, by their nature, have got to be gigantic. Yeah. So you got to get in a golf cart to get from here to over here.
Yeah, we have seen it. We have done Duke Realty's Milk down the Miami Industrial Center. Mm-hmm. 250,000 square foot for warehousing and 2,000 less than 2,000 square foot office space for actually managing the site.
Yeah.
But in the long run, if you think about that in terms of what land is available and floor area ratios and how you want to build up density, why not to put some really cheap office space on that second floor? Would be great for startup companies. They don't care if they're in a warehouse district.
Yeah, but the problem, startup companies, no credit.
Yep.
So the people that'll do it, and it'll happen in Miami, but the people that'll do it are the ones that are gonna pay for it out of cash. They're not gonna go borrow it, because right now the lenders are not doing this in the US. And you know, they'll do it out of cash, and then 5 years from now, everybody's gonna say they were geniuses. And then, I mean, if I've learned anything, and again, I believe, and I mean this when I say it, I think Chad knows more about financing than I do now, after his experience at Flagler. But one thing about debt, and I apologize if I'm offending any bankers in the room, but they are not very creative. And they're not going to take chances. They don't get paid to take chances. And so as a consequence, you've got lenders that all move in unison. So they'll wait. So when somebody lends money on them, somebody builds it and it's successful, then they go, okay, that's a good idea. I'll do that. But they're going to wait and let that guy do it first. And they won't do it first. That's the problem. Yes, ma'am.
That's something. I went to a NAIOP event like a month or two ago about the logistics, and Prolog just showed us the renderings of it, and they were saying for the distribution centers, they're actually putting like a retail, like a 30,000 square foot retail in front of them to make it more attractive and appealing and to generate the revenue. But they have multi-store, like they said it's not built yet. It's still like in the rendering phase, like you said, but they just have these massive like on-ramps up to the second level for the huge, massive trucks that we have. It's a cool concept, but I can see why it's
just expensive.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they're all like chilled facilities.
You've got to be in a market where the land's got to be going for well over $1 million an acre to make it work, which is happening in Miami right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, crazy people are buying industrial property for $1 million an acre. I don't understand that, but that's what they're doing. And that will then drive, because the only way you can add value is to go vertical, and it'll happen. One of the tours, sometime in the next 3 years, you'll go tour a multi-level industrial. I wish it were mine. I would really like to do it, but I haven't found the right combination to be able to get it done yet. I think this site that we had here could have worked for it, frankly, but we couldn't convince any equity or lenders to play. I don't have that kind of money.
Put on the FEC rail, that would be like a good area for it, because the port expansion, that's one of the things they were talking about, the port expansion, and then with the FEC rail and the Bright Line, I mean, that's like a perfect.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I couldn't convince anybody else that had any money.
Questions, guys? Because if you don't ask questions, he's leaving. And the purpose of this is knowledge transfer.
So I had another question around Young has a strong capital markets division.
Yes.
So how has that been utilized to your advantage in the projects? Is it useful to have I guess I'm trying to figure out how you implement that. I know that it's got to be advantageous, but I don't understand the consequences exactly of how.
Well, what you're really asking is how can we make money doing that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The way we make money, one of the ways that we have learned how to make money doing this, and we just pitched this, we just got awarded the contract. We're looking at a site, I can't tell you where it is or anything, but we're looking at a 60-acre site in South Florida. And we put a team together of myself, a very knowledgeable broker who's been in that geography for a long, long time. We then added somebody who understands the likely asset class really, really well, and a lot of tenants that could go there. And then we added the capital markets person. So this is an owner who owns the land, and they understand real estate. They're in portion, by their nature, they're kind of in the real estate business, but that's not what's driving they don't get up every morning thinking about real estate. They get up every morning thinking about the other business that they have sitting there. And so we came in and said, let us look at your property for you, and we're going to tell you virtually every option that you have for your property, where you can develop it yourself, you can joint venture the property, you can sell it in pieces, or back to the development yourself. We can then finance it for you. We can bring in the other equity players. We can bring in other debt players, and we're one big happy family. Let us do this. Now, the report will cost them a couple of bucks up front, but we're not doing it for that. The couple of bucks we're going to do the couple bucks, but then we're going to credit half of our fee back if they do the second phase 2 part of the transaction. So virtually any of those that I just listed off. And that's where the capital markets really plays, is we could bring, I've got the ability to bring those guys in, and they can bring equity, they can bring debt, they can bring whatever is needed for a particular project. And what I didn't mention is that we also, because we're principal owned, we have the ability to do things for our own account as well. It's not, as long as it's not a conflict. So I can develop my own product if I want, and so, Mr. Landowner, I can be your joint venture partner if you want, because by the way, I've got my capital markets guy standing right behind me who can bring the money in. Even though I don't have that money, he does. He's got it, and we can help pick the right people. So that's how we do it.
Thank you.
What advice would you have for students graduating from this program this year? Because you have a vast amount of real estate knowledge in multiple areas, so what kind of advice would you offer?
Advice in what respect?
In terms of the market, in terms of things that they should possibly consider, areas to focus on.
When I was doing this piece in 2008 and 2009, my advice was get anything, get any job you could, get your foot in the door and learn something about the business, anything you can. Market's completely shifted today, where frankly it's hard to find good, knowledgeable people that understand real estate. You all are going to graduate, and you heard Chad say it, and he's right. You're going to graduate out of this program. If you do this program right, you're going to graduate ahead of everybody else that graduated from UM, FIU. I assure you, you will graduate ahead because you will have more practical knowledge because of the way Professor Werzer and Professor Forgey teach this model. They expose you to real projects, they expose you to real people. This is not a design-oriented one-year thing. It's not fluffy stuff. This is the real thing. And if you pay attention, if you learn that, then you will graduate knowing more than most do. That said, you're not going to know anything. I'm just telling you. You're just not. And that's okay, because every place you go, if they're worth their salt, will teach you and tell you what you need to know. And it's through your hard work and practical, hands-on work that you do in that next job is what's going to segregate you from everybody else. You'll get the job because you graduated from here. You'll get the job if you are personable. You'll get the job if you are aggressive enough without being a nuisance. But you will keep the job because you learned what it takes to stay in that pocket, in that field. My advice, critical to any understanding of real estate is understanding the numbers. And this is do as I say, don't do as I do. I don't know, I can't remember what it said out there. I graduated from economics and finance at UI. Well, I mean, that looks like I should be a numbers guy. It was in the School of Arts, you know. I mean, I wasn't even in the business school, right? But they happened to have an economics and finance track, and I took it because I was in there. I started out in poli-sci, but I thought at first I wanted to be a lawyer. And I realized real quickly I didn't want to do that. And so I graduated that. I flunked my first accounting course. I mean, I hated it. I married an accountant, thank goodness. So she does that part of our household. I have to force myself always to look at the numbers and get a real handle on them and manage that process. So learning how to do that is critical. If you don't know that, you're not going to go very, I mean, because no matter what you do, you have to, we live in a capital, unless you're going to go to Russia, you know, or somewhere that doesn't care about that. If you're going to go to a socialist country, then maybe it doesn't matter. But in the U.S., it's a capitalist society. So if you're going to build something, if you're going to buy something, if you're going to own something, it needs to make money, a little bit. And you need to know how to do that by looking at the numbers. So that's my first level of advice, is understand that part of that world. The rest of it is you get great education here. The rest of it you learn from experience more than anything else. I don't know if that's helpful or if that detracts from what you teach every day, but that's my feeling about it. I look for people that can talk to other people. That's what I look for. I mean, you have to be able to, you don't have to be the greatest salesman in the world. I mean, one of the young men that's up there, great kid, his name Sergio. And Sergio hired him right out of UCF as an undergrad. And we hired him as a project coordinator. And our goal was to just, we're going to see where he lands. Smart young man, diligent, works hard, sponge, and we'll teach him, you know, and that's what's happened. And along the way, he's kind of learned what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he wants to do, what he doesn't want to do, and he's learning a little bit. You know, he's getting there, but he's got a long way to go. But the thing is, he's first one at the meeting, last one to leave. He's not a salesperson. He's quiet, very reserved, probably introverted in a lot of ways, and that's okay. You don't have to be the greatest salesman in the world. He's actually going to go be a broker, believe it or not. And he said, "Man, am I making a mistake? Can I succeed as a broker when I'm not a grip it and grin it kind of guy? I mean, I don't like going to networking events and meeting everybody, and I mean, nobody can hear me, and he's about this tall anyway, you know, so he's, you know, I got to crouch down to listen to him anyway, and it's a funny thing, but absolutely 100% he can be successful. But he's got to stay within his own style, his own skill set. He's got to work on the things that he doesn't do well, but he will be successful with his own personality as long as he's disciplined and as long as he works hard at it. Discipline being the biggest thing for a broker. If you're thinking about going in the brokerage business, if you don't regularly get up first thing in the morning or late at night or whatever your makeup allows you to do, if you don't regularly do that, if you don't regularly read about your product, your geography, your business, if you don't regularly reach out to people in some way, shape, or form that's within your personality or framework, don't do it. You will struggle. It will be really, really hard. everybody thinks brokers make a ton of money, and they do if they're really good at it. But it's a hard road. What else? Anything else? Yes, sir.
So what did Angelo do?
What did he do?
Yeah.
He was, well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I don't think he would mind me telling this.
Well, they are here in 2 weeks when he's presenting the material too, so,
Yeah, so
they hear
I
both
got
sides of the story.
Yeah. No, Angelo's in mid-career. Okay, he's run a successful business. He's, I don't even know how old he is. Great shape for however old he is, but he's, 50 something maybe,
Yep.
somewhere in that ballpark.
Yep.
I was never allowed to ask him, but he's somewhere around that ballpark. I know his kids are grown.
Grown kids, grandpa. Yep.
So successfully run different businesses. So he knows how, he's an entrepreneur, he knows how to do things. And then he took this class, the program to learn about real estate because he thought that he wanted to be in real estate. He got out at a disadvantage in a way because even though he had his MSRED program, he's a 50-something. Companies then look at that and go, okay, well, you're qualified to be a financial analyst. So what's your typical financial analyst look like? I mean, they look like Chad did 5 years ago, right? That's what they look like, right? Many of you look like financial analysts. But if you're 50-something, then you're you're not going to make the money you're hoping you're going to make. I mean, ultimately, he's going to leave because he's going to want to do better. He's an entrepreneur at heart. So what we did is we set up a system where he can come in as project manager. My goal was to relieve the faceless Chip up here from doing all of the project management, give Chip the really hard stuff, have somebody else do the easier stuff, the more routine stuff, take that burden off of Chip so Chip can then do my part of everybody's project. And then if we can hit the volume that we're looking at, then he would participate in a percentage income. So I can get away with paying Angelo, honestly, entry-level financial analyst wages, and then if we hit the home run, he'll do fine. And so that's the way we structured it. And we're a little slow on the uptake. We're doing really well, actually, but it's longer. It sounds a lot better when you're thinking about a year, but then when you've got to feed the family, it's a lot harder. And so that was a bit of a strain, but was getting there. But then, because of his exposure by doing this, he got an offer that was, I don't know what he's going to make, but he's going to do really well. He's going to run their regional operation. And it's a great job for him. I mean, it's a perfect job. And I'd like to think that he learned a lot by working with us. And we're going to continue to work together. But that's how we were able to structure. But it's not easy, right? Because he wants to leave here and make a whole bunch of money. Well, I mean, if anybody's thinking that, I mean, that's hard. It doesn't happen automatically. And honestly, I've always worked for somebody else until the last 4 years of my life. I always considered myself an entrepreneur, but if you're making a good salary and a bonus, then you may be entrepreneurial, but you're not a true entrepreneur until you're actually going, holy cow, my wife's going to kill me. I mean, that's the acid test. And
How many times in your career did you have that moment?
In the last 4 years, about once a week.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's add a few questions about work-life balance.
Yeah. Because you get accustomed to that, you know. I mean, you get accustomed now. But in all honesty, for me, I wish I'd done it 15 years ago. I wish I'd done it earlier. And so if you got that bug, there's nothing wrong either way, either choice. But if you're disciplined, if you're smart, if you like entrepreneurialism, and you are conservative enough that you're not stupid, but you're willing to take some risk and you have the ability to take some risk financially, then I would encourage you to do it. And real estate is a great game for that. It's a great way to do well. So I'll be fine. If we get this deal closed, then she won't be asking. When I get that deal closed, we won't.
Always say
Yeah, it's not once a week anymore. So it'll be only once a month.
Great. What I'm going to propose is we're going to switch gears, invite John to take over. Eric, if you want to stay a little bit more for additional questions, if your time doesn't allow,
sure,
that would be wonderful. And we switch gears, we're in a different product type, and John kind of asked very kindly if we could do some calculations and run you through some of the project approaches. Let's call it a project approach. It's going to be very interesting. And let's make it like really, like seriously, just 5 minutes break. Come back in 5, otherwise we are running out of time.
I'm sitting in a special chair today, so. Oh, I made a special request.
Sure.
Yeah.
How long you been in the program?
So, fifth next month.
I said, here's my package. That's right, at YOLO, right? Cool, for here down there. So good. How are you?
Oh, yeah.
So good at first, came in. Is it?
We're gonna build
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the other thing is, well, in my this is around, but this is actually a 2G used
Oh, cool.
So you walk into the background, this thing, being PowerPoint, no switching on, and just the all the button is actually
No, it's
the green match, you quicker and you forgot it was going home.
Get the rematch up in the That's yeah, I'll take Tiger on that.
Water, snack on donuts, we had chips next to the corner. And literally a minute to get done doing this. If you get them,
Tiger's 4, Phillips
at least 20 hours, mini breaks.
It's gonna be a good one.
Oh, it's good.
What was it?
Around the same time. I like stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I used to watch it on yeah. We looked at that. We watched a couple of videos. Two bags and capsules.
Yeah.
2 eggs and capsules. When the last class kept coming up and
Okay, let's start. Again, I have the delighted pleasure to have John here, and he is going to take a look in a completely different angle of what we usually do in the program, and that's, I think, a very great gem today. His studying and simplifying logic and real estate analytics. Good luck with that. You're the expert. Again, every time I have a speaker, panelist coming in, there's between 5 minutes and 5 hours talk about how we can fit this in, make this mix happening. John and I spent not 5 hours, but we spent a few phone calls on exploring availability, then timing, setup for the mix, and all that, and also trying to see how his background gives you an advantage in opening up you with some ideas. Same thing with warehousing and industrial. It's not necessarily always a main focus in a real estate program. Because if you talk about real estate, first of all, you deny that you're going to be a real estate agent. Then you're talking about, if you talk residential, coming out of this program, you're thinking about 4 doors, 8 doors, mini units, or 200 as an apartment manager. And then you're thinking maybe office space, maybe a real retail brokerage. That's in the past few years, that's kind of the trend people develop. So I want to add some different flavor, a little bit of pepper here, a little bit of salt here, just to open up you guys with different thoughts. We have a alumna. She used to work for Duke Realty, and she did warehousing, and she loved it. Like really great, great personality, had this bite, this aggressiveness. Statement myself, I'm Hungarian, I'm aggressive, and I want that. And that's a quote. That's a quote. That's one Chelsea quote. Yeah. And so she did really excellent with Duke. And she also said she was empowered by 1 or 2 presentations from Duke Realty and wanted to work with them in that team. So the intentions for me to bring in interesting speakers of different facets in the industry is also to educate you beyond that, oh, I think I want to be a financial analyst. I hope you realize that you can be a financial analyst, but you are dealing with industrial, office, retail, multifamily, or even hotel. They all said, it's all yours, enjoy this is a fun crowd. Even though there are some seats filling out, those who are surviving, thank you for being here and being part of the great education.
Thank you. So, my name is John Whitenberg. I am a capital markets broker with Colliers International, specializing in hotel investment sales and financing. And typically work within the middle market, so that's $15 to $60 million transactions. So you think about a Residence Inn, a Hampton Inn, a Courtyard, those type of select service hotels, and then all the way up to compact full service like a DoubleTree or a Renaissance. So those are the type of properties that I sell. I'll go through a few things today. I put a lot on the agenda. I doubt I'll get to all of this, but generally I want to take you through some simple analytics, why it's important, go into a little more detail on the real estate side, and then a little bit on underwriting. So simple analytics. How many people are graduating in 2020? 2019? Okay. All right, so you guys are going to start your careers in tour recession. Let's go. Right? so NAB, they did this survey of economists that said there's going to be a recession most likely in 2020. And so, that means a lot for you because it kind of caps your opportunity, it caps the salaries that people are going to be able to offer you. There's a lot of job moves that you'll make. And so it's important to understand why analytics matter. Right? Give you some of my background. I came out of grad school in 2008, and I was I came out of school, so I went to Florida State, got a degree in economics, then I went to American University because I wanted to be in DC, I wanted to work in politics. So I got a job on the Hill, worked on the Hill for 2 years. We passed a GI Bill then, and we also passed a little thing called the TARP program, Troubled Asset Relief Plan, where it was basically a $700 million bailout, bank bailout. So while I was there, we did that. It was an exciting time to be on the Hill. When I graduated from American University in economics, I was planning to get a PhD, but I was too interested in real estate, and every time I would go into the library, they were building a brand new building right next to the library, so I would sit down with my books, I would open it up, I'd look out the window, and I'd watch them pour concrete for 2 hours. It was way more exciting than what I was reading. So that's how I knew I wasn't going to get a PhD in economics. So I settled for my master's, went to work at Fannie Mae as an economist in their credit loss mitigation division. We created the program to modify all of the subprime loans that were made from 2004 to 2007, 2008. And that was called the HAMP program. When my wife moved up to DC from Florida, she spent one winter there and said, we're moving back to Florida. And so we went back to Florida, and at that time, so this was 2011, I knew that I didn't want to do residential work. I wasn't going to work in residential servicing like a lot of people from Fannie Mae do. They kind of go out into the world and then go work in servicing, especially coming down here. There were a few servicing opportunities. But I wanted to get into commercial. I wanted to work for a development company, but it was 2011. Nobody was hiring any entry-level roles for development. I actually did reach out to Eric at the time, spoke with him on the phone once, probably doesn't remember. But no, he was actually terrific. When I decided this is what I wanted to do, I identified all the companies that would be great to work for, sent real live letters to all the executives that I wanted to talk to. I got in touch with maybe a dozen, just to get an idea of where the market is and who's doing what. I got a lot of really great advice. One of the best things I heard, and it may have been from Eric or people like him, was try brokerage. So I tried brokerage. I worked at Marcus & Millichap for about 2 years for a senior broker, doing apartments, so selling private capital apartment deals, so $1 to $10 million apartments. So it's like a 32-unit B-class, C-class apartment building. It was a lot of fun, and by that time, about 2 years in, I was recruited by a company called Insight Group, which is a regional hotel developer, to work in acquisitions and then eventually in asset management. At the time, I had zero idea about hotels. I knew how to put together a multifamily pro forma, more or less. And so they said, okay, well, you'll learn it, and then we'll go from there. I ended up doing, we did about $200 million in transactions while I was there. Big full-service hotels, kind of gutting them, redeveloping into big lifestyle, beautiful type of hotels. So you might know the B Hotel brand on the beach. We had a few hotels, I think there were 11 or 12 hotels when I left there. But big full-service hotels, lots of food and beverage, lots of group business and catering, and all of those things. So it was an exciting time. Last year, so we hadn't done a deal in 2 years by the time I left there, and so I moved more into the asset management side rather than acquisitions. And we were building out all kinds of really cool platforms of syndicating capital through crowdfunding and just kind of building out interesting concepts on how to do the operations more efficiently. But then I got kind of bored because I wanted to be more on the deal side again, and so I went to Colliers last year in March to get involved in capital markets brokerage. So that's kind of been my journey to where I am today. In the news. So this is my favorite real estate aphorism. I'll take a minute so you can read it. So there's never a market bad enough to prevent a good deal, and never a market good enough to prevent a bad deal. A lot of people always blame their problems on the market. A lot of people will say, oh, the market is just so tight, I can't get anything for more than a 4 cap. And it's true, it's tough. When there's a lot of money and there's a lot of competition in the market, it means you have to work a little bit harder. It means you have to work your relationships a little bit better. You have to go to another networking event. You have to spend a little bit more time doing research. But at the end of the day, you look at people who are exceptionally successful in this industry, they're still getting deals done. You look at Jorge Perez, right? I mean, this guy he's been building properties for the past 30 years in Miami, and he always figures out another way to game the system, to be a little bit more creative, and then he builds up organizations and builds up people that do great things within his organization. So you just have to be a little bit more creative, and so don't think that the market is your limiting factor. There are plenty other limiting factors, but the market certainly is one. All right, so when it comes to analytics, my thought is analytics is 80% presentation, 20% technical. The technical stuff, anybody can do. You're learning all the technical stuff right now, right? The presentation is so critical because it's the story that you're telling, right? You can come up with the best land plan for, a 2-acre site that includes so much density and everything. You go to the city, you don't present it right, they're not going to approve it, right? They want to know more about, what does it mean for the community, and what does it mean for your investors, and what all these things. So presentation matters, and so just consider how The Economist does it. So all of this is just noise, but what you want them to focus on are the things that are highlighted, right? The scale, right? So what does the scale look like? So these are critical factors, So think about how you present yourself, how you present the information. This is about communication, right? So it's think about the end user. I always when I'm leading a project, the thing that's top of mind is end user. It's the user experience, right? So to use something from technology terms, it's the UX, right? I mean, this is like how is the potential user, my direct consumer, how are they going to take this in? And if they're not going to consume it easily, and if there are too many questions, then I need to simplify it more. I have to do something to present it in a better way that's going to deliver the point a little bit better. So that's why I think it's more about presentation than technical. The technical stuff you can get into. And then there's the other side of consuming. When you are consuming this, consider that economists are really bad at predicting recessions. Really, and there's kind of like what Eric had a problem with. There was a really nice graphic that didn't show up. But the IMF has only predicted 4 of the last nearly 500 recessions in the past couple decades. Private sector economists similarly have a bad track record. So the lesson is really to form your opinion, your own opinion. Be very skeptical about what you read in the news. This goes for economic data as well as anything else you read about health or politics or anything that you read. All right, so that takes us into real estate capital and why this matters. So there's 3 big deal stages when it comes to putting together a deal. You have your sourcing phase, your execution, and then what you do with it once it's kind of stabilized. So the recap and sale. So on the sourcing side with analytics, a lot of it has to do with relationships, how you use your databases, how you underwrite and negotiate your offer. This side of the analytics is about getting to know your targets. Right? It's about understanding who's doing what in the industry, where they're putting money, where they're putting resources, how they're spending their time, and then contacting them overall to make sure that you are abreast of what's happening, just being on the pulse. In the execution side, so once you have the deal and it's gone through and you've got it negotiated, now you have to close it. And so a typical closing for a hotel, it's probably very similar in other asset classes. Typical closing has a due diligence period, which they sometimes consider your free look, right? Where you have a 30-day window to go through all of the documentation, tour the property, bring in your third-party experts to make sure that everything is kosher and is exactly how you see. What the assumptions that you've made in your underwriting, your initial review financial model, to make sure that you can check all those boxes. Once you finish that 30 days, you'll typically put up a non-refundable deposit, right? And then once that non-refundable deposit is posted, you are on the clock in a hotel to close and transition hundreds of employees from one management company to another management company. And close all your financing and get the brand to agree to extend the franchise agreement and, right? So that closing and transition period can be very tight and difficult to deal with. But at the same time, you're setting everything up for a successful execution, right? You're going to do renovations, you're going to do operational improvements, and then you're going to stabilize the property at a new level, where you think it should be, where you believe the performance has been lacking, and you're going to take it to a new level. And so there's a lot of analytics that goes in there to make sure that, when the lender comes back to you and says, okay, I like what you're saying, everything works, we're going to give you, LIBOR plus 500 for the debt, and you had underwritten LIBOR plus 450, and then now you have to reevaluate and figure out how you're going to make up the gap, right? And then finally, once you have that, once you've executed your operational improvements, your renovation, all of these things, then you stabilize and you have to now say, okay, now what do I do with it? You have the business plan, which has multiple exit strategies probably. But you have to get a good sense of where the market is. And again, it goes back to playing with your relationships, understanding who's doing what, where the market is, working with brokers and capital markets advisors to determine, do you have the most efficient capital structure? Do you want to take back some capital, put more debt on your balance sheet? Do you want to sell it entirely? Do you want to go for an IPO, what have you? So there's a lot of different options, and so that's why, when a lot of people think of the holding period as a passive stage, it's really not very passive because it's an active business decision to do nothing. right? I mean, you're actively decided to hold on and let the property cash flow. And so, you know, this is kind of a very 50,000-foot view of the structure, but if there's any, does anybody have a question about any one of these before we move on?
So I'm curious, under the sourcing, when you're putting search, are you utilizing services like LexisNexis? What are you doing in terms of searching?
So my view on search is a little broader. So I'm an economist, right? And the economist view of search is not a search engine. It's search, right? We do search every day.
Okay.
Right? A big part of search is using your relationships, right? That's a search. You're in search of information. You're searching for different things. And so I look at that as more of a broad category. But yes, there are a ton of databases like LexisNexis, CoStar, Real Capital Analytics. Land Vision is a terrific tool. If you ever get access to it, just has all of the property appraiser information from the entire country in one GIS platform. Very cool. I mean, if you get a chance, spend some time on it. But yeah, I mean, basically you use all those tools, but it's also a big part, you know, reaching into your network. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? All right, so markets are inefficient, especially private markets. Capitalist markets are more efficient than socialist markets, probably. But generally, they're inefficient because there's so much opacity in the world. There are hidden players. You don't know everybody. You will never know everybody. You know who you know. And I had a guy actually, one of my mentors once said, you know, we were in a sales meeting and I was at Marcus, and he said, there are two types of people in this world, right? So he's like charging us up. He's like, there's two types of people in this world. He says, there's those that you know and those that you don't know, right? And so that's the truth, right? You want to be meeting the people that you don't know, because the people that you know will give you exactly what you know you're going to get. There's people that you don't know that are going to move you forward, right? And so there are a lot of hidden players out there. And so when it comes to capital markets, brokerage, you kind of have to get a sense of, okay, who's doing what? I saw this guy just did this big deal in, you know, Wynwood, and looks great, and, you know, they got great financing. And that's all historical, right? That's all been done, you know? So you have a good sense of where their head is at, but until you go out and actually talk to them, you don't know that they're going to do that deal again, right? Not to mention, you don't know all the 30 backup bids that came in that might have been doing it differently and may have done it the way that you would want it to be done, right? So there's horses that you don't see in the field. So a big part of it is finding those decision makers, connecting with them, and then asking open-ended questions about how to evaluate their business and connecting the dots for you to get into that mix, right? And that's a big part of, you know, a big part of that is learning those needs and desires. And when I talk about open-ended questions, it's those, you know, kindergarten questions: who, what, when, where, how, and why, right? So you need to be presenting the opportunities that people are interested in at that time, right? And so, you know, you think about a development, how many people are involved in that? The people who get the headlines, of course, are the big developers, right, and the big consultants that play in there. But the people on the fringe might be the ones that are, you know, connecting others within the network, right? And you often have to kind of plug into those, and that's how you become an efficient player within the network. Any thoughts? All right, and so within that, so data drives a lot of these decisions. So risk is calculated on objective and subjective measures, right? You build these mental and mathematical models to judge a risk. there are a lot of mathematical models that are based on historical data that measure risk very well. And then we have all these mathematical models that have all of the black swans in the error function, right? So you all know a regression function, right? It's the result that you want plus all of these factors, and then you have this big noisy error function, right? This big epsilon that just sits out there. You have no idea what's in it, and then when you try to overfit the model, then the whole thing breaks down and you don't get p-values that you want, right? So the error contains all of the valuable information that you need to pull in from the inefficient market. You have to use your gut, right? You have to use your gut to say, all right, we're not measuring employment in the area, but I know it is important. I know it makes sense to include this in our decision, right? So you have to consider that when you're putting together a capital plan, because there's always going to be that outlier, right? In 2007 and 8, you know, when people were saying, it's never going to stop, we're having such a great time, right? A lot of that was in the error, right? A lot of that black swan was in the error. People didn't, there was an inefficient market problem that we didn't understand, that all of these CDS securities, all that CLO stuff was leveraged, you know, multiple times by multiple banks. We just didn't know, right? I mean, or we didn't care to look at what the impact of that would be, right? And so mathematical models were good and they were back tested and they did a great job, but they didn't consider those other factors. And so that's where your mental models come into account. And I think we're in a very similar time now. I remember 2014, we were putting together a deal, really great opportunity in New Orleans. It was a country inn and suites right on Magazine Street, outside the French Quarter in the CBD, but blocks from Harrah's, blocks from Canal Street. I mean, it was really, you know, kind of a main location. It's a country inn and suites. There was an opportunity to reactivate 3 historic buildings in the middle. So building another 70 rooms on top of the 155 that already existed. And we would be able to get historic tax credits, national, US historic tax credits and state tax credits. And I think there were even local tax credits, plus, you know, all of the occupancy tax credits. And it was just a terrific deal. And what's great, even better than we had all those options, is that we didn't need it to make the deal work. It was all just great, you know. I mean, it was all, if we can make it work, if we get all these tax credits, you know, that'll just boost our IRR that much more. So we got down to the wire. The deal was a broken auction, which basically they'd gone out to the market, they didn't get the bids that they wanted, so they took it off the market. And then, or no, they got the bids, they went to contract with somebody, and then that somebody couldn't get the equity to close the deal. And so we swooped in, kind of like a white knight situation with the Carlyle group, and underwrote it, got to a value of about 28 million, offered 27. The guys that just fell out of contract came back and said, look, we want to buy it. And they said, okay, we'll do 28 million. So we came up to 28 million. They said, we'll do 28.5. So we went to Carlyle and said, it's a great deal, right? And we got all these options with the tax credits and it could work out. He said, we're not, you know, $500,000. You got to be kidding me, right? I mean, it's like $28 million deal. $500,000 is not going to break the deal, and we have all of these options, right? So we said, can't do it, right? So this was like killing me. You know, you're a deal guy, you get compensated on the deal, and like, oh, yeah, you know, my wife is killing me. And then we ended up, so we ended up going through the model, and we said, okay, it makes sense. And the one thing that stuck out to me at the time, and you know, looking back, I'll tell you why it was the problem, is that we had a LIBOR curve. Everybody's familiar with LIBOR? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So it's the index rate for the loan that we were expecting. So the LIBOR curve that we had in there in 2014 had LIBOR going from, I think it was at 50 basis points at the time, to 450 in 3 years, right? And this was like, oh yeah, it's got to get there, right? I mean, we've been at 0% interest rate for 4 or 5 years. it's got to get up to 5%, right? I mean, there's no way we can continue this run. The reality is, LIBOR didn't move, right? LIBOR didn't move until like 2 years ago. So that broke the deal for us, all because of this historical model, this historical gut feeling that we had that we've got to be on the edge of increasing interest rates. We've got to be on the edge of a recession, right? And in some markets, we did have a recession in 2015. You know, look at Miami Beach. Miami Beach 2016 and or 15, 16, and 17 were very difficult years, right? In 16, you had Miami Beach Convention Center closed. You had the Zika scare, and the Brazilian real depreciated 34% of the dollar. That was not a good time for Miami Beach, and only now they're kind of coming out of it. But you know, all of these things, you know, we could have made so many more deals, but when you're just always thinking like, there's got to be something coming. And so we're in a similar situation now. Yeah, everybody's predicting recession. We've been, you know, in this bull market for 10 years or whatever. But the things that you're not considering as well are we have a more fluid and efficient labor force than we've ever had in the history of the world. Outsourcing, you know, contract labor is brand new. I mean, the ways that we're moving labor is completely different than we've ever done. Global capital flows are so much more efficient than they ever have been. Back in 2004, I think, Ben Bernanke had a terrific presentation about the Global Savings Club. And I encourage everybody to look this up, look up the Global Savings Club. But basically what he presented was that you have all of these third world countries who are flush with cash, and they only want to put their money in one place. One place. The dollar. They want to put it in the United States because it's the safest investment in the world, right? And we're in a very similar situation now, and we have been for the past decade. We have so much capital rushing into the US that the Fed cannot sell enough bonds to increase interest rates, right? So, or sell enough of their like portfolio. So they built up their balance sheet, right? And so now they've been trying to, you know, reduce the balance sheet. So they can't sell enough to like affect interest rates. And so this is we're in a very similar situation today. And then the other thing is that, you know, people still want to invest in the U.S., right? So I'm out here, I'm selling deals at, you know, out of all the major asset classes, just to give you a sense of scale, office, I call it the big four CRE players. There's office, industrial, multifamily, and retail. Those, I call those the big four, right? They make up, I think, 90% of total CRE square footage in the US. Hotels make up less than 3%, but still they make up about 20% of most CMBS issuance. They make up 20% of many of the bank financing allocations. And then you also have other specialty asset classes like healthcare, student housing, data centers, all these other things that are worth considering as well. So in terms of scale, so out of the, if you include hotels in that, you know, this like minor little whatever, a very high profile minor piece of the pie, hotels have tremendous interest because they cash flow so well, right? They like, these brands have built these marketing powerhouses that just pour money, you know, guests into hotel rooms. So if you consider that, and we're selling these things at a pretty stable, if you're a good operator, you can get a pretty stable 8% return in a market that for multifamily is selling, you know, 4, 5%, you know, cap rates. So you see a lot of new entrants coming into hotels, mostly from multifamily and retail because they think that they can do it, right? But you know, there's a lot of risk in that scenario. So you have all these new players who are bringing their own money and they're putting more of their own equity into the deal because the banks aren't necessarily comfortable with their strength and ability to operate a hotel. So they're putting more of their own money into the deal and they're comfortable with it because, you know, even if they put 50% leverage on the thing, they're still doing better on a cash flow return basis if they were to buy another multifamily asset at 80% leverage. Just, you know, it's a risk that they're willing to take because they get, you know, a little bit better return and they diversify into a market that may be a little bit more robust in their mind. So, anyway, a lot of these decisions are based around time, size, and pricing. And so, in terms of time, you know, so if we're talking about capital markets, the price is, you know, most capital markets players are price takers. There's so much money out there, they'll just take the price, you know, so it's a, you know, from an equity point of view, an opportunistic deal is looking for around a low to mid 20s IRR to start. Value add is, you know, high teens to low 20s. Core plus is in the low to mid teens, and then core assets can often, you know, you get high single digits. You know, I mean, some core assets are just, you know, 8-10% return. So a lot of these guys are price takers. Same on the debt side. You know, the market sets the price for debt. There's so much money in debt funds and private equity right now that those specialty lenders are bearing down on commercial banks. And so you see a lot of these debt funds who are used to offering debt at L plus 500. Now there's so much competition that they're in the L plus 400 range. And commercial banks that may have done similar deals were in the L plus 350, and now they're kind of pushing down to the L to 325. So there's a lot of that going on. So there are a lot of price takers. The size is important because it determines the level of risk, your last dollar in a deal. And so you have to be pretty confident that you are willing and able to take back control of that property at that price and make a profit that you need to satisfy your investors or your depositors or your regulators, what have you. And then the time is important. And I always think that this is one of the most overlooked pieces, but probably one of the most important pieces in putting together a capital stack, is that all of these capital providers have a certain time frame, right? They need to return investment to their, return capital to their investors in a certain way. And so if you have a high octane deal that is expected to turn around in 3 years and then you refinance, it doesn't make any sense to put a loan on there that, you know, has some egregious yield maintenance or prepayment terms in order to, you know, sell the deal, in order to get out of the deal. And so you saw that Chad was talking about the insurance company loan that they got for that multifamily deal. The insurance company has an interest to hang on to that piece of debt. There are some ways that you could do, there's some things you can do to offset that prepayment problem. You can defease the loan, which basically means you go get another asset of the same quality to kind of put in place. You know, it's like, have you guys seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Right, so when he like has the sandbag, and he like has to swap out the idol for the sandbag, you know, I hope that like it doesn't blow up. Right, so that's like what a defeasance is. It's like you hope that you get the right asset to like, you know, offset your cost. And so in some cases that happens and it works very well. You know, particularly with multifamily assets or you know these high velocity big kind of transactions, because you know you can take a government secured bond and replace it, and it has a similar risk structure. So the timing is very important because you can be locked up in a deal not for contractual reasons but for economic reasons, right? And so being locked up for economic reasons is even worse than being locked up for contractual reasons. With a contractual obligation, you just go and renegotiate your position. With an economic problem, you're stuck, right? You have to find somebody who's willing to overpay so you can pay off your loan, right? Any ideas here before we go on?
Can you kind of explain, you can use the whiteboard if you want, on how you interact as a capital markets broker? Because I'm just, what party you work for, I'm just not too familiar. I've heard the title, I just don't understand.
Yeah. So, so you have, there's, I mean, two big groups here, right? So you have the operator, developer, you know, project manager, right? These are the people who are doing the work, right? And then you have the capital providers, right? And that's everybody in the capital world, right? So that could be a private equity fund, it could be an insurance company, banks, everybody who has money, right? These guys, they'll bring money to a deal, but only to a point, because their business model is to create value in their expertise, right? So they create value for the project in the ability to execute efficiently, right? And so these guys are interested in getting a return, right? And they want to align with people who do that most effectively, because they want to offset as much risk as possible, right? So, you know, you consider, so where I sit in the middle is these guys are really good at doing what they do, right? Building, yeah, the operators, right, or the developers. They're really great at building and operating real estate. These guys are really good at deploying money, right? They have an operational structure. Their operational verticals are focused on those things, right? That's what, by focusing their energy on that is where they get the value for their investors and for their partners. Where I sit in the middle is these folks don't need to be doing capital markets brokerage every day, right? It's not efficient for them. If they go out to the market, they know there are 5, 6, 7 people, and then once they've done that, they have exhausted the options, right? My entire job is meeting these folks and seeing where I can connect the dots, right? That's everything I do every day of the week, every hour, every second.
So would the buzzword be duration in some of the pension fund type
no, well, so when you ask about what I do as a capital markets broker, I match capital and projects, right? And it doesn't matter what, you know, so this, as far as price, time, size, whatever, I talk to this guy, understand, you know, what he or she wants to do, what the objectives are, and then I go to the market and say, all right, the best options for you are A, B, and C. This is the most likely structure. Let's get your attorneys involved. Let's get everybody involved to, put the deal together, right? So really just a matchmaker. But the important part is that because I do it every day, I'm exposed to more of it than either side, right? So I actually had a meeting with a debt fund guy a couple weeks ago in Miami Beach, and he was saying, you know, I can spend every day of the week going out and meeting with sponsors, you know, with deal guys, but I won't see nearly as many deals as you do, because I still have to do asset management. I still have to, you know, file paperwork and all these things, whereas my job is really 100% finding these parties. You know.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
So, what's your licensure for that? What are you beholden to in terms of like what regulatory body?
So you live in Florida? Do you have a Florida real estate license? Of course, right? Because you live here, right? Because everybody does. Because we're in Florida, everybody. You have a pulse, right?
You have a pulse.
Exactly. so yeah, that's all I need to sell hotels, right? And also in Florida, you can sell businesses with your real estate license, right? So a lot of what I do, you know, hotel is an operating business, is considered within that business brokerage / real estate world. I do not make residential loans, and I do not sell securities, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, we want to put together a real estate syndication, right? So I want to go club this deal, go to, you know, all my buddies in the country clubs, I cannot sell the securities, right? Unless I'm a partner in the deal, right? So I would have to get FINRA license, work through a broker dealer. Like it's not worth my time, not worth my energy to do that. Unless I'm a partner in the deal, then I'm happy to do it.
So then are you a mortgage broker as well, or you go and you meet the mortgage brokers?
So it's, for commercial real estate, you don't have to be a licensed mortgage broker.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So I'm not, I work with a lot of mortgage brokers, but also financing isn't a big part of what we do. A big part of what we do is matching. So I'll give you an idea. The types of clients that we work with are, the Blackstone Group, Carlyle Group, Starwood Capital. That's the type, big REITs. Those are the type of groups that we work with. They're capital providers in many different spheres of the capital world. So they may have an opportunity fund that's buying equity stakes in portfolios or whatever, or they may be deploying a mortgage REIT, or there's so many things in these diversified commercial real estate financial companies that it's easy to get around them and make introductions in that world. And so because there's always an opportunity to do acquisition financing, refinance assignments, it's something that we do selectively, but more often than not, we're selling assets between these groups.
So then your engagement model is an exclusive.
Yes, I do not work on a non-exclusive basis.
Yeah. So it's like an exclusive listing. That's your target.
Yeah.
Do you have an engagement model contractually with your capital?
No, it's not really necessary.
That's because, so then you're
I'm tied to the property.
Okay.
I'm tied to the sponsor. Yeah.
Got it.
So I work for them to maximize their outcome.
How do you judge your fee then? Based on change in financing, aka your capital just turned into cheaper money, therefore I get a cut on the savings? Or is it a flat fee where you say, I find you the best fit and you can take it or not, but you still have to pay me?
So my objective is always to maximize the result for my client, right? And so there's a lot of reputational risk associated with that. So I would not put a deal together that I know is not in the best interest for my client, because I know that it'll get around the industry very quickly. I mean, because we are a very small industry, 3%, less than 3% of the total square footage, you can imagine people know each other, right? And if it comes around that, you got a raw deal, it could have, it's not good. And there are a lot of investment groups out there that have reputation like that, that work their network and get sweetheart deals, and it gets around. You don't like to do business with those folks. So basically, I mean, we charge a fee, percentage of the capital raised, or a percentage of the sale price. So if so in many cases, so to your point, if they're usually, the sponsor usually comes to us and says, we need $80 million, right? It doesn't matter how that $80 million comes together. I mean, we'll say, okay, well, $80 million is better from an insurance company or from a commercial bank because of all these reasons, then we'll make that deal.
Okay. So then you've got the two different lines of revenue or two different engagement models. That either we can take the exclusive listing or we can take a percentage of the capital raise. Is it specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I personally like working on capital market, like the capital deals,
right.
The loan and the equity deals, but there's more. I don't know. There's just a different business model to doing investment sales. I mean, by working with those, you work with different sponsors and put different sponsors, together in transactions. I mean, I'm just more effective there than I am in the capital space because there's so many guys competing in that world. whereas I can specialize with my knowledge and experience. I'm more of a, I'm a better advisor on the investment sales side.
Thank you.
Yeah. You got a question?
Yeah, you keep mentioning Carlisle. Were you involved in any, I guess, brokering the deal or helping with the acquisitions in Florida Keys of like Holiday Isle, MRK?
I was not.
Okay.
No, I wasn't involved with that. They did that with Trust Hospitality,
Okay.
and then Trust. So that deal went down while I was at Insight, so I didn't have any brokerage involvement there. But I do know that they had some problems, and then the hurricane came through and just cleared out Isla Mirada. I mean, they just had a lot of big difficult time with those assets. But they own half. I think they own half of Isla Mirada.
Yeah, I just had my wedding at MRK.
Yeah.
My brother's in the finance world, and Carlisle owns this, and Carlisle owns that. They're just taking over Alvarado.
Mark is a really cool project, actually. That used to be a Hampton Inn.
Hampton Inn, that's the Outback Steakhouse,
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up down there. I know the area. Wow.
Nice. Yeah. But that's an important trend to recognize. You'll hear, and you probably do hear a lot about lifestyle in real estate, right? Like lifestyle retail, lifestyle centers, all this stuff. Lifestyle hotels are displacing a lot of brands, right? So the structure of a hotel deal, you have three major players. You have the brand, right, which is your sales and marketing arm. You have the management company, which operates the property, and then you have the ownership, right? So the brand brings, and it used to be, I mean, back in the old days when Marriott was building all of their hotels and Holiday Inns and Hilton, it used to be all integrated. So Hilton and Marriott, they own the dirt, they own the property, they manage the property, and they did all the branding, sales, and marketing. In the 80s, there was a franchising craze all over real estate, and it caught into hotels, and so they broke up franchise and management, right? And then a lot of the management companies also had ownership involved, right? So, but franchising became a big business, right? And these brands could now go asset light. And then in the early 90s, it broke even further to where these big companies spun off ownership completely. So Post Hospitality just spun off all of the Marriott holdings into this gigantic REE and host hotels and resorts. And so now a company like Marriott is really just a sales and marketing organization. That's all they are. They have management capabilities for people who want them, but they're not the best managers out there. They are very effective at finding guests and putting them in your hotel. Right? That's what they do. And so what the internet has done to the hotel world is it has streamlined that search to make it that I don't have to be a big name to get my message out to my community, right? And so have you guys ever heard of Kevin Kelly? Okay, another resource you should read, 1,000 True Fans. So Kevin Kelly is the founder of Wired Magazine. Also has a really great blog. I think it's called Technocrat or some tech whatever. But he wrote this article back, I don't know, probably 2007, called 1,000 True Fans. And basically it talks about how all you need in the world is focused more on individual creative people. All you need in the world is 1,000 true fans, because if your 1,000 true fans can spend $100 a year, then you can live successfully as a private creative person, right? It's the same kind of concept with marketing for hotels. If you find your 1,000 true fans, they will tell all their friends and all their family, they'll put it all over their Instagram, all over their Facebook, and they will become your sales and marketing team, right? And so these new management companies like Destination Hotels and Resorts, Joie de Vivre, Kimpton was doing it for a while. They basically built their profile based on this concept of you find your diehard fans, empower them, and then they'll go and spread the word. And this is exactly how Marriott did it. This is how Holiday Inns did it back in the old days. Except they had to do it by putting out these booklets, right, to tell you where all of the hotels are. And then they keep a certain quality standard so that when it comes around and you go on your road trip, you come back and you say, oh my God, I stayed in this Hampton Inn. Let me tell you about Hampton Inns, you know? So I mean, that's basically what's happened now. Is like you have something like a Marquee. It used to be a Hampton Inn. They don't need Hampton Inn. What the hell are you going to stay in a Hampton Inn, the most beautiful place in Florida? You know? So you go stay at this nice resort. The room, you're not spending too much time in the room. You're down by the beach, you're down by the pool, you're fishing, you do whatever. So the room doesn't matter so much. You know, it just has to be clean. It has to have the amenities that you need. And so that's, you know, you look at a lot of these Miami Beach resorts that have no brand whatsoever. They're doing so well because they've aligned with their 1,000 true fans.
Well, I think also this comes back to the concept what we used to have in regional planning and urban planning as place branding. Old cities did that, like New York City. What's the slogan of New York City?
Never gonna sleep.
City that never sleeps, or Big Apple. Yeah. So all these Singapore is the flowerful city or something like this. So if you look at that, for, like now in the hotel business, you create this kind of niche boutique brand, so to speak, as a recognition. When you came with this example, I'm like, well, he's really right, because if you talk about, let's say, diving, scuba diving, well, Fort Lauderdale, people don't know this, but we are one of the major worldwide destinations. If you add to the Keys, but then if you go exotic in the Caribbean, you ask people, hey, what about Bonaire? Everyone like, yeah, Bonaire, beautiful island, lower Dutch Antilles. Beautiful islands, beautiful islands. Where would you go and stay? That shop. Like, this whole island is full of little motels, hotels, from a 0.2 star to a 5-star. That shop, that place, that, you know, that's kind of the Marquee now in the Keys. It's this place, name, quality recognition. And that's also the thing where we see this when we have speakers coming in here, when they say something about leaving legacy. Oh yeah, we did this project 10 years ago. Or you drive by and I did this project when I was my first 5 years of business. Yeah, that's interesting how this also will now change with the internet through different promotions. And bam, let's say restaurants business. Who knows Yelp? Everyone uses Yelp? Yeah. Bam, that one bad Yelp review and you're not going there for sandwiches anymore. Yeah? So that's interesting to see if that will actually impact real estate development in terms of where are the hot sites gonna be, not just by land development, but also by public perception. You might have seen this more often actually because of the hotel sector.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, think about what Eric was pointing out, where he said, okay, we have all this multifamily, we have some retail here, and then there's a hotel, right? Why would you put a hotel there, right? It's a very important question, why put a hotel there? It's for servicing the community, right? There's a lot of reasons. Why would you put a hotel in something like that?
It's also employment.
I'm sure that in the short, what was it, the company that does the blood medical devices or whatever, I'm sure they have people that come in from out of town that they need to host, and great, hey, I have a hotel right here next to our complex, you know?
Right.
But the question is, how many keys do you put there? How many hotel rooms do you offer there? Is it just 40 or is it 500?
Right. So everything starts, I mean, I think when you go here, I think I have something on this. So yeah, so, you know, there's the investment point of view, and then there's also the operational point of view. So the investment side is very macro, right? It's like, oh, we should have a hotel here because it'll improve the overall feeling of the space. You know, these guys can stay when they have guests in town or contractors in town. They can stay in this extended stay property, whatever it is. But the operator's focused on, I got 125 rooms to fill. How am I going to do that, right? And so that's where you have to come down to revenue. And Jeff Bezos is well known for saying revenue solves all problems. It's true. He doesn't say it because it's bullshit. It's true. You need revenue, right? Revenue is the lifeblood of every single business. And so what the operator is focused on first and foremost is filling up that hotel. And you do it in 3 ways. So I'm not going to pull it out, but you basically have transient, right? Those are the folks who book on, Priceline.com, on Expedia. They call up the hotel, they go to brand.com, they just walk in off the street. That's the transient group. They have group, which is the business that is sold, right? Actively sold by a person, right? So I'm a sales manager at a Holiday Inn Express. I'm going to go to every single office building in a 5-mile radius and say, hey, have you heard about this new Holiday Inn Express? Do you like Holiday Inn Express? What do you like about Holiday Inn Express? So that's my job, and saying, do you ever have people come to town? Do they need a place to stay? Let's sign you up on a corporate rate, right? So that's group. And then they also do things like weddings. They sell like social groups like weddings, bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras, all those things. And then you have contract business. The nice thing about contract business is it's a guaranteed rate, guaranteed occupancy for a certain duration. So in a place like Doral, where you have these big hotels by Blue Lagoon and these type of things, they like to have a certain amount of contract business from the airport, from airline crew, to effectively shrink the hotel, right? If American Airlines and JetBlue and Delta will guarantee 40 rooms a night for the entire year at a certain rate, the revenue that you're getting. That's your base revenue, right? And so essentially you've taken a 140-room hotel to a 100-room hotel. So now all you have to do is sell those additional 100 rooms, right? And so that's why contract business is very important. And so you can take advantage of having a smaller hotel. You can take advantage of what we call compression, right? So when there is a big group in town, when there's a citywide event like the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show or the Home Show, or I don't know, there's the Pharmaceuticals Association of America, whatever it is, they'll fill up every single room in Miami Beach, Fort Lauderdale Beach, whatever it is, and then everybody else is forced to go to Plantation, Weston, Miramar, whatever, to get to where they want to be. And so when you have that compression, if you have a good enough location and you don't have many rooms to sell anymore, what happens to your rates? They go up, right? And so you're able to charge what you usually charge and you probably experience this, right? You stay in like a Hampton Inn, or, I'm sorry, I'm picking on Hampton Inn so much. You stay in a Motel 6, where, Motel 6 is usually like $100 a night or something, and you leave the light on. You stay there for, $200-300, and you're like, at least they left the light on. But that's what compression is, and it allows you to, pick up a little bit, in economics we call it rents, right? These single period rents. When you can just get free, it's like free cash for no good reason, right? Any thoughts on that? All right. So, okay, so I want to do this quick thing, and then I'm done. I'll stop talking, pontificating. I want to show you this. Everybody take out their cell phone. I love this.
Hey, kiddos.
All right. Everybody has a cell phone? All right, very simple. Swipe up and then open up your calculator. If it's an iPhone, I don't know about Android. I used to have an Android and it didn't work. All right, so you have that. So we're going to start with revenue, okay? So revenue in a hotel is measured by 3 things. You have occupancy, you have average daily rate, and you have RevPAR. Okay? Aww. Okay, so occupancy RevPAR and average daily rate. So let's say we have a hotel that's 70% occupied. So let's say first it's a 100-room hotel, okay? And it has, and you can rent the rooms how many days in a year?
365.
Right, okay. So we have 365 days. So you have 36,500 room nights available, right? That's how many rooms that you can rent on a daily basis, or on a yearly basis, okay? We measure in room nights, okay? So these are room nights that you can sell. In multifamily, because you have year-long leases, it's the unit itself, right? So per year you rent one unit. In office and retail, it's square footage, and then industrial, it's what, cubic feet?
It's actually going to that, but it's more square foot.
Square foot.
Yes,
Okay.
square foot.
So you can rent out 36,500 units, right? All right, so now what's the occupancy? Let's say here that, you know, it's a good market and they're renting at 85%, right? So you multiply that by 85%. So you have 31,000 room nights sold, okay? So this is your basis for all of your descriptive statistics on per occupied room. This is your occupancy. These are the rooms that you've actually sold. Then you'll multiply this by the rate that you got on average through the whole year, okay? So let's say that this is a nice resort and you're selling these things for $250. So it was a 100-room hotel, 365 times 0.85, okay, times 250. So this is your revenue, 7.8 million. So revenue. Okay.
So that's RevPAR?
No, this is your revenue. This is your total revenue.
Just the
Yeah.
top line?
Yeah. So RevPAR is revenue per available room. And so basically if you divide this, divide by 36,500, or there's your RevPAR, 212. All right.
So it's room nights sold times.
Room nights sold times average daily rate.
But average daily rate can fluctuate.
Correct. Well, your average daily rate is the average through the year, right? But the actual rate fluctuates throughout the year. So this is your total revenue divided by your occupancy. It gives you the average daily rate. All right, so now you have occupancy, or you have total revenue. There may be other revenue in there, so let's just say that, you know, let's multiply this by 1.1, and let's just say, you know, there's 10% additional revenue, right? So total revenue, 8.5 million, okay? This is a very important number because from this, you can make money, right? Your efficiency, the efficiency of your operation is how much money you bring down to the bottom line, right? So in a very efficient property, you'll be running 35% NOI margin. In less efficient properties, you'll be running, you know, 20, 25% NOI margin. Let's say that this is a resort, you know, we were saying, and so let's say it's somewhere around 28%. So we'll multiply this times 0.28, and so this is your NOI, right? It's your net operating income. So did everybody follow that? So we went from the number of units to the number of opportunities we have to sell that unit, right? So that gave us the total room nights. And then we multiplied that by the average rate we get on those units, right? To get the total rooms revenue. We increased it by 10% to account for all of the other additional revenue like food and beverage revenue, parking,
Mini bar.
Mini bar.
That's probably 20, we should add 20.
Sounds like sounds like Ryan gets that bill hit frequently.
$20 for a Toblerone.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, they have to charge that much because, you know, you have to send somebody up to count how many Toblerones you ate. So there's
Or didn't eat.
Well, okay, there you go. You got robbed, I think. Okay, so now and then you multiply that by your NOI margin to get to your NOI.
How many properties do you see that actually make money on their food and
It depends. So there's different food and beverage operations that generate cash flow in different ways. So in a hotel, I'll put this to the side for a minute. So in a hotel, you have restaurants, bars, cafes, sundry shops, and then banquet space, right? Restaurants that are food heavy make no money and cost money, right? It's just very costly to sell food. You have to be very good operator. You have to have a really great menu. Otherwise, the food's not good. Food's a loss leader. You make money on booze because that's marked up, 2, 3, 4 times depending on the location and the type of drinks you're selling. And then you make some money in the cafe because it's like quick service stuff. It's like you pop it in the microwave and serve it, so it's like you make some money there. But the big money is in banquets and catering.